Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevation Tier List. My name is Jeff, aka Zengrin, and I'm joined by Andre from the Metropole grid. Say hello.
Yo, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Super stoked to talk about some runner cards on this side of our elevation tier list.
Yeah, apologies for the delay for those of you who are watching this stuff live. Life was just been hectic, but we have, probably a good another 2.5, 3+ hours of content for
Buckle
you,
up.
and I think some pretty scorching takes, judging by how we've rated other things now. Other people have rated stuff. I should note we're recording this right before the first major event of the competitive season, the Man the Moon's
Summer Showdown.
Midsummer Invitational or Showdown.
Yeah.
It has over 100 people registered at time of recording, and not a single game has been played. We have not seen submitted deck lists, so we are doing this, I hopefully with the same amount of knowledge that everyone else has been making tier lists. So you can get our honest takes before we get proven a fool, before I can even upload the video.
Yeah, we're 12 hours out. I'm really excited for, mind you, this weekend. So if you want to watch this and then after watch some gameplay, that stuff is all going to be archived and VODed on a couple different channels. We might link those in the description, but really, really excited to see this stuff put to the test.
Yeah. So without much further ado, let's talk about the tier list. So these are how we're going to try and rate these cards. We've changed them about a little bit, but we're going to keep these tiers the same as we have both for the corp side and as for the last cycle. So our top tier here is Ban Me Please. These are cards that we think are going to single-handedly shape and warp the meta around them and are going to be skirting ban lists and watch lists probably for a significant amount of their time in Standard. Next up, we've got Faction Staple. These are cards that we expect to basically be in every deck inside a faction, or maybe even beyond the faction if it's a certain type of card. These are maybe not necessarily the strongest cards. Like, these are not always stronger than the next category down, but often they're just generically quite good. Next up, we've got Archetype Enabler. These can, on occasion, outsurpass a faction staple, but they have to be kind of a little bit more narrow. You're not going to play them in every single deck, but when you play them, you're going to play them in a deck that it kind of enables. I'm trying to think of a good example.
Audrey V2?
Yeah, Audrey V2 is a great example of I want to be playing a trash engine, and Audrey V2 enables that engine in addition to being kind of a payoff for that engine. Sebastio is maybe another good one where he enables the whole archetype of installing cards, and he is the thing. You could not make a Tag Me Anarch without Sebastio. Basically, he enables that archetype. Next up, we have Archetype Role Player. These are cards that maybe you're not excited about to be playing, but they will have a slot when you're playing that type of deck. So maybe we'll say something like, oh goodness, the Run Event Lady.
Musliat? Oh, Debbie Downtown Marrera.
Debbie Downtown Marrera, which is not like a card you're generically going to put in every deck and be excited about. But if you're playing an event-heavy deck, you'll probably take a look at her, and she's solid, but not going to be something that you're like, oh man, this enables this deck. It's just a nice piece that goes in there. Next up, we have Slots Are Hard. These are cards that we expect to see pretty fringe play, maybe are tech cards for particular metas, but often are like the 46th, 47th card, and they never quite make the list, but they look pretty interesting. And finally, we have Binder. These are for categories that we think, cards that we think they might be cool, they might be fun, they might have fantastic theming, but this whole tier list, which I didn't say at the top, is really focused on competitive Standard play. And these cards that we listed as Binder, we don't ever really expect to be making big splashes at high-level competitive Standard events.
Yeah, I want to reiterate again, this is all about Standard competitive play. This is not meant to be gatekeeping. There's many fantastic ways to play Netrunner. This is just the way that we interact more when we play Netrunner. We talk about Standard competitive. So if you're worried about startup or core, all this sort of formats, there's a tier list in the description. You can make your own list. We'd love to see it, but that's the focus. That's not the best Netrunner. It's just the Netrunner we play. So hopefully that lines up well. Cool. Also, it is technically we're a bit further out. We're 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks maybe since Elevation came out. I'm really bad at making those quick calls, but we've had no major tournaments. I haven't even played all of these cards, so some of these cards are fresh. It is worth shouting out that, Jeff, you've been doing playtesting. As much as playtesting is very different than launch environment, you've seen some of these cards in different iterations, never the same cards all together in their final iterations. So you have a bit of an insight, but still, these are pretty, again, hot off the cuff takes that we've been experiencing these cards only for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's mostly it. You want to dive in?
I think that's mostly it. Yeah, let's start hitting the cards. I think we're going to start with like a really contentious one.
I'm so excited. This is the first card here. This is Phoenix Ryo Ono, Out of the Ashes. Mind you, we have now pronouns on the cards, any, all. Identity Gmod 4517. So you have 2 extra influence. Says the first time each turn a run becomes successful after a subroutine resolved during that run, you gain a credit and the corp trashes a card from HQ. Now they choose the card that trashed from HQ. It's not random and it's trashed face down, kind of like Sabotage. So you have to go find what that is in archives. What do you think about Phoenix? I think Phoenix is easily the runner in the set I was the most excited about. And I think my evaluation of Phoenix has been incredibly inconsistent in terms of not the Phoenix playstyle, but I've been like, this is the best. I've played a couple bad games. I don't like this. Then I play more games. This is the best. And I keep oscillating. It's like really, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think they're a fun ID, and like I've seen spiky players do strong things with Phoenix.
Yeah.
But I have never sat down across a Phoenix and gone, oh boy, that ID did a ton that any other Anarch ID wouldn't have done. Like my sense on this is that Phoenix isn't as good at applying hand pressure as a card like Essa does, where it's like, oh yeah, the constant sabotage is gonna just kind of tick away at me all game. Or if I'm playing against Toshiko, I'm just on a clock because at some point that card draw is going to outrun the value I'm making as most corps. And I found that Phoenix just has a lot of counterplay. And then also, if your opponent happens to not draw Banhar in the first 10 cards of their deck,
it's not a deck.
It's just like, oh, oops, you lose. Yeah. Like your idea is just blank, like completely and truly blank. And then there's been a lot of games that I've played where it's like, oh yeah, if I just like don't res in the ice here, the worst you're going to do is to get a single.
Yeah, okay. And that's like the strangest thing is like a lot of the play patterns against Phoenix are firstly mulligan from Banhar with all abandon. And then once you have Banhar down, corporations don't often want to res 1 ice. They have to wait until they res 2 ice, which puts you in this weird situation where like then you need maybe a breaker suite. I've seen Matryoshka see play. I've seen Botulus as a way to deal with the second ice, but it puts a corp in a weird situation. And it feels like if you're not playing really aggressive Anarch, you can't actually capitalize on that situation. Where if the corp doesn't res, you're not getting any good value, which is why I think the first Phoenix decks I've been playing have been incredibly aggressive and are running things that force reses, like playing the new account siphon, playing 3 Stargates, right? Like actually going out and forcing the corporation to consider resing is where I've kind of played this kind of like an aggro max deck circa 2014, 2015. That sort of era of max keyhole Stargate stuff, and that I've been enjoying a lot. And yet I'm still not 100% sold that this is that much more consistent or strong compared to just like playing good stuff Anarch aggression Hoshiko. But I've been having the most fun playing it, like way more fun than Hoshiko, and that's not exactly what this tier list is trying to capitalize on. But I know good players actually like this a lot, and I'm really excited for this weekend because if Phoenix pops off 17 influence, there's a lot of creativity with the deck building.
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, Chishtushka also feels like one of those other cards I've seen do quite a bit out of Phoenix. It's like, oh yeah, you know, maybe I can get you to trash a card and sabotage a bunch. You know, it doesn't help that I've been playing a lot of Wayland, so it's like, oh, I've always got that Ashar on HQ, and it's just like, oh, killing myself here kind of thing. Yeah. But I think it's like, to me, I have not been. It's like, yeah, the Phoenixes that I've seen are like, oh, we're gonna go all in on like blitzing this early game because that's when this ID has power, and that feels like such a narrow meta niche when I could instead just play a little bit slower, play value, and like I can play Essa for that like aggressive-y early tempo-y damage stuff. And I don't have to rely on what my corp opponent is doing, right? Like there's also a problem with Phoenix where it's like, oh, if I'm playing as an asset corp, they just might not install ice, and that may not even be bad for their game plan necessarily.
This is the weirdest thing is like the matchup that I think I was really changing my mind a lot is Alco is like one of the good corporations right now, right? And Alco in theory does like Phoenix, likes Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because if you discard a card from hand with Phoenix ability, you get a power counter. If you run through net damage ice, that usually doesn't end the run, they get a power counter. So the fact that you could interact with like an enemy and get 3 power counters is kind of hilarious. But the more I played that matchup, the more I realized getting cards out of the corporation's hand, like they can't sustain that. They can't afford to res an enemy on centrals. A lot of their ice doesn't work anymore. And while Banhart is a liability if they're actually playing Sice and Todd, it's really interesting. It does get cards out of hand, and you do feel the pressure. And getting that clickless credit, like the credit on Phoenix is very easy to ignore. It's good. Like just getting that built-in Desperado, we haven't seen that on an ability in a really long time.
Yeah, I think part of my concern with Phoenix also is I think as soon as he shows up in a good deck, like Banhart gets banned and she just disappears.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Like I think Banhart people kind of want banned. Like I've heard that conversation. I'm not totally sold on it.
Yeah.
Banhart is just a busted card right now. Breaking ice is really difficult
either at the moment, but I could definitely see it being a conversation, especially with how much power loss has hit the corp.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, this ID feels so all in on Banhart, and I struggle to believe that if you took the same deck that you play in Phoenix and you just swapped to Hoshiko and like dropped your 2 worst influence, that you wouldn't end up on the same or better deck. Or you could do that same game plan better in Hoshiko.
I think you're right. I just think if you can fire Phoenix consistently, having a built-in Maw, not random, but a built-in Maw is a bit stronger than people think. But Hoshiko is very, very, very good. And that is going to be a hard bridge to climb. I do think if like you ban Hoshiko and you get back DreamNet, oh my God, I'm so excited to play Phoenix. Like that is going to be my reg aggro Anarch.
If we're in that world, I'm looking at the next ID actually instead.
Yeah, that might be fair.
Right, and that's my problem. And my bias on Phoenix is I just it's so all in on Banhart. It just feels, and it's just as corps figure out the patterns into Banhart, the weaker Phoenix is going to feel to me. So I know people are quite high on him. To me, he's a role player. Maybe he's an enabler, but I would even put him in slots are hard if I was being really honest with myself. But I think it's hard for me to say that honestly with how much hype there's been around him.
Yeah, I would jump between role player and enabler. I think our midpoint is probably somewhere around here. I reckon. I think that makes sense. I do want to shout out before the YouTube comments say it, Banner, the card that doesn't break barrier subroutines. You can play it. It is the other Phoenix card, and I think that's the only way you can consistently Phoenix in startup. And it has felt very, very bad every time I have played it. Welcome to Massacre of Cometa. It's rough. It's not great. All right, next up. We have Topon, Ormas leader, they, them, identity natural. Once per turn flag, sick. You can spend a click to install a card from your hand, paying 2 credits less. And then after that card is installed, you have to suffer 1 meat damage. So Patchwork was a console that rotated out of Reign of Reverie, a blessed card, a rules nightmare of a card, but one of the coolest Anarch cards of all time. This looks like Patchwork, but I want to be very clear. It's not Patchwork. It's so much worse than Patchwork. I like Patchwork so much better because it plays events. You pick the card that is so important. 45-15. What do you think about Topon?
I will say this is confusing to print while Hoshiko is in the card pool. Yeah. So this is just strictly way less value than Hoshiko provides. Hoshiko is -1 credit. +1 card basically for taking a run action. This is +2 credits, -1 card for an install action, which is just kind of worse. Your value is tied to that install action, not the run action. And as a Reg Anarch deck, which for people who are maybe newer to the game, Reg Anarch just usually means this is a deck that plays efficient cards, makes money, goes for lots of single accesses, and tries to kind of apply just a little bit of pressure. It will probably include only 1 or 2 cards that provide multi-access and are win conditions, and is mostly just about trying to control the corporation's board and board state. And it's been a pretty dominant style of runner since at least 2018. Hoshiko has been the face of it since Valencia rotated, and Topon is not posing any threats to that throne, I think.
So just devil's advocate, what about if we're in a meta where running is difficult? Say it's like Hyper Glacier. Do you think you'd consider playing Topon as the sort of value-based Anarch that doesn't require interaction over Hoshiko that needs interaction to do something? In that case, which we're not in that case.
Yeah. Like
but you know
if
what I
we
mean?
end up like, yeah, if it's somehow that like you construct an entire meta that's like
Yeah.
like, you know, every single server has at least one, probably two ice on it.
Yeah.
I guess then by like, you know, man, it feels like the whole meta would have to actually be something like, you know,
BTL.
every corp would have to have a next activation, or not next activation. The next, what's the ID? The next design that was like start. You can install 3 ice and then draw
I think
back
this
up
is
to
called
5.
Next Design.
Okay, next design.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like Hoshiko getting that value on turns 1, 2, and 3, which you can
Good.
still get in Glacier metas, is so important. Turns 1, 2, and 3 are like, those are the turn, you know, it's kind of a joke, but those are the turns that happen every game. Turn 4 is not guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
It often is, but right, it's like the earlier you can get card draw, the better. And like the random damage on Topon is really rough, right? It means
Yeah, it's not Patchwork. It's random damage. Like the thing with Patchwork is you had extra copies of Patchwork. You had Steel Skin Scarrings. You had Strike Funds, and you could feed those to the Patchwork. So that means consistently you're taking the worst card from your hand and converting it to 2 credits, let alone playing events. This is a random card in your hand. And so what I've realized when playing Topon is I'm actually incentivized to play on low hand size, because as soon as I had a full hand of cards, it was full random. But as soon as I had 2 cards in hand, I could get it down to 100% or a frustrating 50-50, whether I hit, you know, the good card or the card I don't want to hit. So it was like kind of weird. I do want to say from the Topon testing I have done is I would look at like the JNet log and I realized like Topon fired 10 times. Like that's 20 free credits. That seems really good. Obviously, we're losing cards. Like it feels like it never felt as good as the numbers after it, which is a weird psychological thing that I also need to get over.
Yeah, and I think there's like, it feels like there's some things where it's like, if you could find passive draw, and that's why we mentioned DreamNet when we were talking about Phoenix, right? If you could install a DreamNet for a credit, make a run, and get the card back that the damage took out of your hand, that starts to make the idea look more interesting. Or, you know, another card that like feels like it's not quite good enough, but feels like it also could maybe almost get there as like a verbal plasticity, where it's just like, I played that to draw 2 cards. I, you know, Topon both of the, you know, I Topon install one of them and damage out the other. And so I've done, you know, in those 2 clicks, I've drawn 2 cards and install a card for 2 less. And that starts to approach some amount of like just generic value that you can hopefully convert. I think some of the issue is also like a lot of Anarch stuff does want to be held in hand right now. And like they have a surprising amount of their game plan around events and like timing the install. So you get your Paladin drip every turn, you get your Keiko trigger every turn.
That's true.
Like
this actually doesn't work well with Keiko and Paladin. Like you're in situations if you're playing Keiko Paladin, it's actually better when you install the thing with Paladin to get the credit from Keiko. And if you use Topon, you can't use Paladin, so you can't get Keiko. Like I've seen weird board states where it's like, just install the card. Please don't take damage. It doesn't make sense. And like, what's going on? It's really weird.
That said, I think when we talk about their console, like that their console could be an angle in the future where this idea starts to look more interesting, I feel like.
I tried Lilypad. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's actually a really big thing, is that your economy has to come off of cards that you're installing. And there's not a lot of 2-cost cards in Anarch that you want to install. We have Rent Riders in the set, Fermentor for 1. But the idea is like the more that we have of 2 or 3 cost cards that you want to install, the better Topon will get directly. Right now, it feels like it's just Fermentor and events, and that does not work well with Topon. I do think the card pool also does not support this.
But if we get to you know, if you could start installing cards like a Desperado off of Topon,
daily casts would be so good.
Daily casts would be a great example card of this. And it's like, I don't want to splash Open Markets, a slow card, and get my slow value off of Topon. But you know, you could see worlds where you get more incremental engine-y Anarch pieces that could kind of make sense with Topon. But it doesn't feel like the card pool's there. I think like as ID text, like if this is not objectively bad, it's just objectively outclass, right? So to me, this goes in slots are hard because you're never going to actually slot this over Hoshiko, I think.
I'm interested to see, like, in the future, whether you print something like Titanium Ribs or Clan Vengeance. Like, as soon as they're a damage synergy card, I think this becomes less of like even, you know, a value card to like value card plus game plan, because you're missing a game plan. It's just like it's a value ID, and I want that sort of like Clan Vengeance type effect.
Yeah, that's fair. I did see a lot of people in you know Eternal during spoiler season going, oh yeah, this is the best Clan Vengeance ID ever printed, and I'm like, I think it's still ESSA.
It's still
but,
yeah, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Would you argue for Binder, or do you think you actually will play Topon at some point?
I to me, Binder is like, this card is like it's unforgivable. Whereas like I think Topon is just like outclassed.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We get to see Topon again in just a second. This is Charm Offensive. It's a run event, costs nothing to influence. It says run archives. When that run ends, you may trash a rezzed copy of a card you accessed in archives during that run. No reminder text on this, but you do trash the card for free. You don't have to pay the cost, but you can trash not only assets and upgrades that have, you know, trash costs, you can trash ice, which is kind of cool. This is a functional reimagining of a card that saw no play from the previous meta called Immolation Script that had this text, but it was more limited towards ice specifically. This is a card I think a lot of people are really roasting. I do consistently play one of in my my 3 Stargate Phoenix deck, and I've actually been kind of valuing it. Like, it's kind of, when it fires, it's really good. I do want to say that is awkward because that deck is, of course, a Banhar deck, and keeping any sort of card in your hand that you have to keep in your hand for a certain board state does suck. But the fact that you get that Stargate with that triggered destruction, the fact that they throw out their extra copies of their BOAC because you're hitting them with Phoenix, that does kind of line up. I don't think you're going to be pretty high on this card.
No, I'm pretty low on this card. I think like when you can land it, it's great, but it's like, you know, it reminds me a little bit of Finality in the like, oh, in some games, this card is going to completely win and take over everything. But then in a bunch of games, it's just going to sit in your hand and have cost you an action to draw and provide you no value at all.
Sure.
And that those cards to me are very swingy. And it's not like, to me either, that Anarch has a hard time interacting with cards on the corpse board state. Like,
it's true,
right? Like, this is a faction that has Botulus, it has
Crew Charm,
Crew Charm. Like, it's got a lot of ways to handle ice. It probably has some of the best ice breaking tools, kind of, or like ice removal tools at the very least, right? And Banhar kind of obviating the need for other solutions. Like, there's just, Anarch is well positioned into ice, and while they're not as well positioned into assets as they may have been historically, I think they're still pretty good. And playing a 0 cost card to deal with a 2 trash asset feels pretty bad right now, and that's most of the things I'm worried about. Right?
But I think you do this for ice. Like, I think the minority of the cases you trash like a Plutus or a hostile architecture, but like 95% of the time you're trashing ice with this.
Sure. Yeah. But it's like, I don't need that. I don't need this. Yeah. I don't need that on an event. I can do it in a more consistent thing, in a card I can put on the board, leave, and come back to what I wanted, I think.
I agree. It's not consistent. It has a problem. It is arguably a bit win more. I don't think you can play it in a reg shell because I think you need to line up with destruction, especially targeted destruction if you have it. But I haven't seen this really anywhere that I feel consistently good about.
Yeah, I've heard theorizing about like, oh, we could put it in ESSA and then we'll sabotage half the corpse deck and like maybe.
But that's
we'll
a card you have to keep in your hand for
ESSA,
and ESSA's so bad at holding cards in their hand for like certain specific board states.
Yeah, I think this is actually a great example to me of, again, a slots are hard card. It's not. It doesn't do nothing. And like, if you could summon it into your hand in certain board states, it would be super decisive.
Yeah,
but it just, on average, is not going to make the cut into your deck list.
Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful effect. It just doesn't seem to be consistent. I like Reprise more than this for what it's worth because you want to hit that text. This is a lot harder.
Yeah,
I like Reprise a lot. Okay. 1 influence, 1 cost, scrounge. We have never seen recursion this accessible. It's a double. So it takes 2 clicks, and you can install a program from your heap. Again, you do pay costs, and then you may add a program from your heap to the bottom of your stack, which not a lot of factions need to do that. If you're playing Shaper, you can go grab that card with an SMC or a Muse. If you're Criminal, you can mutual favor or shuffle your deck. If you're Anarch, get to the bottom of your deck. Weird text on top of that, like, or the bottom text. Like, I don't fully get that, but having a card draw from heap and install on table for 2 clicks is not horribly off tempo, as much as every time I've played Scrounge, I felt like that was a bad use of half my turn.
Yeah. I mean, this is not, I think, aimed at standard. I think there's probably some standard decks that are going to look at this and be like, I want simul chip 4 and 5, probably not 6.
Now it's like 7 and 9 when you play Muse and simul chip if you really want to do in Shaper.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, this is, I mean, and like at one influence, this is clearly priced to move.
Yeah.
To me, though, this is not, yeah, it's just as a double, like it sucks, right? It's like, oh, I gotta play this, spend half my turn, and then hopefully I'm making a run that the corp didn't think I could make. Because otherwise, like,
yeah,
this is so bad.
I
and
think,
like, if you end up in an if you end up in a cursed like SDS Kimberlite field meta, like, sure, you can splash some Scrounges into your Crim deck and feel okay. But this is not a card I'm building around, I guess. It feels too slow to recur like an economy piece or an essential breaker. So
yeah, it feels slow. I do think the Panic Criminal option is an option that most deck builders that play competitive standard just don't build for that. They just say, okay, I'll try and win off of my other tools. And we lost Inside Job, but you still have Boomerang. You lost Amakua. Maybe that's a bit worse. I do think a lot more criminal decks are just running more breakers. So you're genuinely seeing multiple breakers in decks. Maybe that's a Moosely hot thing. I do think if you play Lilypad, this gets a bit more on tempo, which is nice. If you play DZ, and there's some small reasons to play DZ in Anarch, which is kind of goofy, but I haven't felt like I need this in any deck. I'm interested to see whether mulch decks I want to recur Gourmand, because Gourmand is actually a pretty high tempo card if you're interacting.
Yeah.
And so you kind of make up some of the downsides of Scrounge. I think there could be a deck there that wants to play this maybe instead of Simulchip, maybe on top of it. I don't know if this is obviously showing up anywhere. It hasn't been like leading any decks, but I'm not giving up on this because what it does is, like, again, as you'd say, price to move. I think it's kind of fair. I still don't know where to put it though. Like, it might just be a good slots or hard card.
yeah, I probably is another slots or hard card. We'll have to watch how big this category gets. But
yep. I think we have a lot of slots of hard cards in this part of the set. Yeah. Like, okay, it's worth noting, we probably should have said this at the beginning, is that Elevation came out and was a massive rotation. And going into this rotation, it looks like runners are fine. If you didn't print any new runner cards, runners with rotation probably would still be competitive, but corporations needed a lot of help. And we saw a lot of really good corporation cards on the other side of this video. However, runners, it feels like the quality, the average card quality may be spoiling a bit of this video. This is my thoughts. I don't know if you're Jeff agreeing with this. It's not that good.
I would generally agree, but like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the card quality, the average runner card quality is not that high, but that's probably good for the game.
Yeah, it's fine.
So like,
it's
don't take like, oh man, they rated like only one runner card in the top half of this thing. Like that wouldn't. I mean, that's not how it's going to land.
No, there's good cards,
but
yeah,
there's some very good cards, but we're not. I am expecting this to be a more niche set of runner cards. That like are focused, something I didn't say about Scrounge is like it's to me much more intended for like a system gateway plus elevation core gameplay where you get public trail retribution and you're like, oh shoot, do I just lose? Oh, I can include one copy of this. The game speed is slower. I can just recur the breaker that I need to because there's not good ways for me to search, if I'm not playing criminal, and so we can kind of keep going.
Yeah, it's a really weird product. I never like the term product, but yeah, core has to make sense. You also said niche, and that's like a weird thing about the set is I think there's a lot of cards here that are just like fundamentally good cards. Like they're meant to be, the core set. There's a lot of like basic ideas. So they're not like niche designs. They're just like, I don't know. Sometimes they don't seem like they're going to make a lot of sense in competitive standard.
Yeah, they're like foundation or just below foundation level of power. So
yes, but it's a good set. It's like a really cool set otherwise. All right, our last event. This is Shred, 1 cost, 1 influence run event, run any server. And the first time the corp would end the run, and that can be any ability, it doesn't have to be an end the run subroutine. So anything that fundamentally ends the run, you prevent that run from ending unless the corp reveals and trashes X cards from HQ at random. Reveals means they'll be trashed face up. That's actually a really big upside to this card. And now X is equal to the number of cards in the root of the attacked server. So if you're running that, core set, System Gateway, Anoetic Void, Managarm Skunkworks, and an Agenda, they have to rip 3 cards randomly from their 6-card PD hand, which is a pretty big downside. That being said, I think this is a binder card. I don't think I'm going to play this anywhere. In standard, we have like the fire if you really want this effect. You have pinhole threading if you want to do the effect more consistently. And just like this card just doesn't do anything in a lot of matchups because there's only a subsection of corporations that have more than 1 card in a remote server at any given time that's worth you playing this.
Yep, and some of those decks, like in the previous meta, did not actually care about ending the run on that remote server anyway. So like card is no longer in the meta, thank God. But there was like the Warroid Tracker, like Mr. Hendrick, like hell servers that you would access. It's like, they didn't care about ending the run. They were just going to blow up your board because you made it in. And so Shred is useless in those situations. So it's really only like the PD Anoetic Void stuff. And that deck seems like it's got other structural issues in current standard. So this is like, again, this is a core and elevation where Managarm Void is basically, or was the only viable strategy. And so printing a card for disrupting that format environment makes sense. But this is not a card that makes anything does anything in standard.
I want to be clear. I do play decks that lose to this. Like I play LEO with like 11 upgrades. Love it. Great deck, having a fun time. And then when somebody plays this against me and I have to rip 4 cards out of my hand, it does feel bad. It's just that is not often going to happen. So this card is not often going to see play.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a console. It's an Anarch console. It's unique. It's called Bling. This is Chopin's Arm, I'm pretty sure. 1 MU. Whenever you install a card without spending credits, you may host the top card of your stack face up on this hardware. That card is not installed. Now you can play or install any hosted cards as if they were in your grip, and then when your discard phase ends, you have to trash all hosted cards. It's 3 influence. Notably, without spending credits means literally without spending credits. So you have a card that generates credits to pay install costs, things like Chesva somehow or Paladin Puemo. You did spend credits. Open market. You are spending the credits on the open market. That doesn't work. But if you do Toppan, and Toppan, their ability installs for 2 fewer credits, that functionally does get around this. You can also install 0 cost cards, which is kind of fun. And the other cards that reduce install costs, you have like I guess, DZMZ is definitely an option you can consider. So there's a couple niche options, but this is nowhere near as easy as just putting down a Paladin Puemo. Also, if you do this on the corpse turn, that's fine. You'll have the cards on the Bling until the end of your next discard phase. So you can actually fire this on the corpse turn. And there's some good reasons to do this. I think this is the most divisive console in the whole set. There's only 3, but like I've seen a lot of different evaluations. This is the card I think I've seen the most range of people saying busted, trash.
Yeah. I want to shout out quickly one synergy that I think is really good. Like it's going to be the thing that eventually makes this card really strong, which is Gachapon. Gachapon being a 0 cost trigger that then hopefully hits a second 0 cost trigger means I get to kind of draw 2 for a single card, right? That's when I start going, oh, that's some interesting amount of value.
Price is cool too. That's another 0 cost card, but Gachapon that you can fire it twice on your opponent's turn, or once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn is exactly what you want to do. You want to start your turn with stuff on the Bling so you can plan your turn. That's always really fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think this console is not particularly strong at the moment, and it may never get to be that strong, but I think it is kind of a draw console, which I think is always an interesting thing, especially in Anarch. In fact, and historically, like play just about anything for draw. Like even before it became overpowered, like moshing of technically a negative draw, like it was technically -1 card, saw a ton of play even before it synergized with Steelskin Scarring, right? Like Anarch and like the reason that Hoshiko has been the de facto Anarch is that she's had card draw on her. And there's like, if you look at the Anarch card pool, the cards that say draw a card on them are exceedingly rare, like way rarer than either of the other 2 factions. And so like that makes me look at Bling with interest, even if I'm not particularly enticed, even if I don't think it's going to be particularly strong at the moment.
Yeah, it's neat. I don't think I've seen a deck that's wowed me, but I've seen a lot of strong players try really hard. I do think the 0 cost synergy package, the idea you install Stone Chip Chart Room, you functionally made a diesel for 1 influence. That's like kind of neat, as much as you can break the diesel up across turns. The No Free Lunch package is now a cantrip 3 cost credit. Like that's like not bad. Honestly, not kind of that bad. But with Hoshiko around, has it been necessary? I don't know. I've seen, mind you, DZ and illumination work. Illumination is a thing that could trigger this a massive amount of times, and then you can illuminate off the bling. And like maybe that is not a realistic thing we should build around. But I've seen some like highlight reels from this card. I've just imagined the lowlights are like, oh, you built a weird deck with a lot of zero costers, and you struggle to interact with the game in a meaningful way. But I actually am like, I don't think this card is amazing right now, but I'm kind of with you. I'm actually like hype for the design of this thing, and card pool eventually might bring it over the top. I think you have to build around it.
Some painful points for it right now in particular are is it does not synergize well with Strike Fund or Steelskin Scarring.
No,
because if those end up on bling, they get trashed, and they were not in the grip or on the top of R&D or the stack. So neither the abilities on them do not trigger. They just are blank cards. You can still play them while they're on bling.
Yeah,
so you
which
can
is
get
fine.
the 1 credit draw 3 or 1 credit gain 4, which is like okay. They get played as that mode some amount of time, but you don't get I get the free trash upside, which is often what people look for in those 2 cards.
Yeah. Fascinating console. Really cool console that gets better with the bigger card pool, which if you're playing in core, get some good zero costers from the Borealis cycle. There's a lot of them. I think this is functionally an enabler for a deck that doesn't exist, but currently it's a role player. Like I do think it will be the key card. You'll be playing a bling deck, and that will be how you define your deck. I just don't think that deck is real.
I agree. Yeah.
So where do we put it? Because you're gonna play a bling deck. I just don't think that's gonna be like an obvious deck.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem where it's like, I think to make our list like parsable as a tier list.
Yeah.
Does it go in slots that are hard, but we just know that when the card pool gets bigger, it becomes an archetype?
Only if we clearly express that idea multiple times before we put it in there. So one more time if you want to, and then I'll put it in there.
Yeah. So this card is going to enable an archetype if the card pool goes in a particular direction.
It's a powerful card.
Because draw in theory an unlimited number of cards per turn. Strong text, you could say.
Good text.
But in practice, it does not feel like anything's there for it. So,
well, I have a zero cost card. It's called
True.
Gourmand. Is a little guy. So Imp rotated. That's another little guy that I think we've all kind of liked a bit. Maybe you don't like Imp. I don't know. Zero cost 1 MU program, not a virus. NSG. What the heck? Access, add an access. So when you're breaching, there's not many cards with this text on it. You can trash this to trash the non-agenda card you are accessing. But if you do draw a card, it has, you've translated this, right? It's like a don't feed after midnight through like hex into assembly or something.
Yeah. I forget exactly, but it's basically like if this program runs after midnight, throw an error.
Cool.
Which kind of, is interpreted as, don't feed the gremlin after midnight, basically.
Exactly. So Imp is gone. This is Gourmand. Imp trashed agendas, which is actually kind of important. It also fired twice as much as it could be purged. Sometimes it fired 3 times when you played Cookbook, which usually did. There's massive archetypes that... Yep.
Yeah. And sometimes it fired for the entire game if you install an Opcary. Or some other virus support pieces. Yeah, Friday chips and stuff. So...
And that was a really good meta card. Yeah, this is one and done. Now it draws a card and it comes in for free. So this is meant to be more tempo. The idea with Lou is that you draw 2 cards when you trash a thing. That feels really good. It feels really fun, but you're going to be less commonly in that sort of like lock formation where Lou is just barraging turn after turn, just ripping you apart slowly. Not a win con, but you have a lose con on the table, and it's an imp and it's always coming back. I'm excited to see what mulch decks look modernly if that archetype still exists. This is the way that you feed your Audrey, which is a bit more limited. I don't know if you can afford to recur this. I think this being a card that is only 2 influence is a bit better. I think Imp was 3, that you can play this in maybe Shaper if you want to recur it, as much as I think Copulation takes that slot relatively easily modernly. I don't think this is a straight downgrade to Imp, but it definitely feels worse on a bunch of angles, but better on one.
Yeah, I mean, the being free to put down, I think it is a pretty nice upgrade. And then drawing you the card, like,
sick.
It's great, right? It's not, it's not as the ceiling of the card is way lower than Imp, but I think the floor is also a little bit higher. So like it's been squeezed a bit, and I think like to me it still looks pretty good. I will probably at some point build a silly Arasana deck that installs these flying into a server
It's
just
so
from
good.
hand, and then like
Yeah.
draw one for lily pad, just trash whatever I access off the top of the deck or the top of
Yeah.
the hand kind of thing, and then
I like that a lot.
kind of draw another card. And I think
Yeah.
like, we're getting into a world where one of the questions your deck has to be able to answer is how do I make enough money to trash everything? And so this
Yes.
can be a pseudo 3 credits where it's 2 credits to trash the asset and then also the card draw to replace itself. So it's like 3 units of value on a card, and that's pretty good. And it can feed into these other engines and things. Like, it's not a fancy card. It's not a slam dunk goes in every deck, but it's a very solid card, I think.
Yep. No, I like it. You're gonna see this in a lot of Anarch decks. You're seeing this even in like, I think they're still running Audrey, but like Seb decks are playing this just to get a little pressure, a little more Audrey tokens. It pushes you forward. The corps are annoyed by it. It is definitely quite good. Does it enable an archetype? No, it actually might be a faction staple. Like, I don't think I see an Anarch deck that's not playing this besides like Reg Hosh maybe.
So because it doesn't go in Reg Hosh, I feel like that makes the role player.
That's Reg, yeah. Faction staples, just whatever Hosh is up to everybody else.
I don't think Essa plays this either, right? Like, Essa's not going to slap it
probably
around
not.
In the
no,
in
you're right.
deck.
Essa's not. Yeah.
It's like it does. That said, like the mulch decks will absolutely play this, and it's going to be a big part of that deck. Arguably, it's an enabler for that deck, right? So
I think it is. I don't think you can play that deck if you don't have an imp like.
Yeah. If you don't have anything that just lets you arbitrarily trash a card, I think that deck doesn't exist. So
yeah, cool little guy. This is like really neat. You're gonna see a bunch of ideas if you've been playing Netrunner for a long time or maybe just a while, that there's a lot of cards that either existed in system update or have existed in the history of Netrunner, and they've been retooled for modern standard play. And a lot of the new reprints are like really rad and take cool angles at some like ancient ideas. And this is a really cool imp. I like this imp a lot.
I do too.
All right, next up we have Hantu, 3 cost icebreaker killer. It's a virus. When you install it, place 2 virus counters, 3 if you're cooking. And it says interface 1 to break a sentry subroutine, which is fine. Hosted virus counter for +2 strength, and it comes in with 2 strength on its own. It's 2 influence, so you can splash it. So this means you can break some high strength ice sometimes. You can be playing leech and other ways to modify strength or bring ice strength down. And if it's breaking 1 for 1, that's honestly not terrible. Now there are very importantly many good sentries in the format that come in at 3 strength, things like Drafter and Doom Scroll. There's 4 strength sentries as well, of course. Boomy, I'm gonna just say Boomy. I play Boomy, and that is an issue. Like, boosting strength on Hantu is going to be a problem. I don't have great thoughts about this card. I feel like if you're playing outside of Anarch, I like Revolver. I'll be honest, I haven't played a Breaker Suite in Anarch so far. I've been finding I'm not playing Hoshiko. I feel like any Anarch deck that I put on the table, I cannot afford breakers. I'm just playing Banhar and Botulus and just not caring about anything. So I can't imagine myself putting down a 3 credit breaker and then spending more money. I know I'm in the wrong. People are doing it, but like, I don't think they're playing Hantu. I think they're playing Echelon for like 1 influence.
Yeah, I mean, I think Echelon for 1 influence is the biggest question this card has to answer. That it's tricky. I think this does have some advantages over Echelon in theory, where you can use it a little bit more aggressively early. I think there's I like this card. I don't think it's a strong card. And like the card it reminds me of is something like Mimic. And this has that advantage of the turn you put this down. This can actually deal with 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky, larger sentries, right? But Mimic could often deal with all of those 3 strength sentries on its own, and then it was just your job.
Didn't play Mimic. It was so frustrating. Mimic was like really, really good forever, like 3 cost sentries. So much of the struggle is how do you break a Drafter?
You say that. I was splashing Mimic into Arasana, and a lot of Arasana players were, because they realized like, oh, this is better than playing an Echelon. Is I just throw in the Mimic for the same cost, and it solves all the same problems, but it just does it from turn 1. And I think Hantu can, if we end up in a heavy Jinteki meta, Hantu turn 1 dealing with a Saisentan, I actually think is pretty nice.
I hear that, but I think if you're ending up in that meta, you're gonna have to probably break a lot of, maybe, I don't know, maybe not, but like Empiricist, you're gonna have to worry about. You're gonna have to worry about maybe the big snake, the Cloud Eater showing up, right? You're gonna have to deal with bigger stuff. I don't know, Karuna, maybe. I'm not sure. And the thing that gets me is like, there are, mulch decks that spend influence, or they recur things with Simulchip. And does that deck want to play Hantu, or does it want to spend 4 influence on a Revolver? And my guess is that deck gets way more value by playing Revolver.
I actually, I mean, I'm sure the better multiplayers will disagree with me. I think they should probably be looking at Hantu instead and saving that influence.
With Cookbook, I think this is a fair bit better. I'm
Yeah,
forgetting Cookbook makes this a lot better.
If we're playing a cookbook deck already, like I feel like this is just gonna be better than Revolver most of the time.
Yeah,
Maybe not. Maybe I need to sit down and actually do the math on just Comet Sentry breaks. But it's like this. I mean, like if I'm thinking about that meta, like, oh, this is breaking Drafter the same number of times for the same number of credits, right?
No, you can break Drafter more with a Revolver because you got 6 shots.
Sorry, if we're in the cookbook world, right?
Yeah,
sorry,
okay.
Just stepping into that cookbook world for a second, right? I could with, you know, and maybe that you're saying, oh yeah, well that's unfair because that's one extra support piece, but
that's fine.
We're talking about, I don't know. This is not a card that goes everywhere. We probably have spent too much time on this relative to this slots are hard icebreaker. I don't think it's actually a binder card. I think some people might say it should go in binder. I also think there's a world where like if we ever end up in like a leech breaker situation, this card looks totally fine.
Well, that's the problem too, is like what happens if someone purges this? People are not playing the virus, people are playing Fly Swatter, but imagine you need this and then it gets purged. Like how cursed is that? Especially if you're relying on leech. Like that's not a good spot you want to be in.
That's definitely not a great spot. But like, I don't know, it's funny, a lot of the high strength entries you can probably get through once if you really have to. There's not that many high strength end the runs.
Yeah. No, there's not really at all. So maybe that's fine. I don't know. That.
Yeah, we could put it on the other side of Scrounge if we're feeling feisty, I guess. But
I think more people will play Hantu than Scrounge.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think you're right. You know, honest, it's funny. It's like if Hantu costs 2, I might look at it a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's weird. It's a weird card. There's also Boytata.
It's also like it's funny because it's like the Anarch Killer Suite right now is just a pile of weird cards because you've got Hantu, you've got Boytata, you've got Numb.
Yeah. Have you ever tried paying credits with Noom? It's really bad. It's like pay 8 for your first drafter. I'm like, nah, I'll just let it fire. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay. We have one more icebreaker. This is Rising Tide. This is like, I think the coolest litmus test for like what the meta looks like right now, because we have to be excited about Corroder again. What has happened that we've like 13 years later, Netrunner is meant to be stoked for Corroder. It's Corroder. It's 1 cost. It comes in a 1 strength. It breaks 1 for 1 subroutine, and it goes 1 for 1 strength. Now, if you have more fractors in the bin, they don't have to be Rising Tides. They can be whatever you want. This gets permanently plus strength. Barriers are good right now. 3 strength barriers are kind of sick. They're just very good. There's no Cleaver. Mind you, Cleaver got banned. That might be a bit obvious here. This card, it is technically one of the best fractors in the game, kind of. Actually, hold on. Is this even the best? Is Anarch even the best at breaking fractors anymore? Like, they're meant to be the best faction for fractors.
I think it's Shaper by a mile now.
Yeah. And then maybe even Criminal after that. Like, what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you do get 3 rising... Okay, if you can get 3 Rising Tides, or if you can get 2 fractors of the bin in the first 4 turns, then Rising Tide is, like... is rocking, right?
Yeah,
it's great. But yeah, it is a slightly cheaper, slightly worse fractor, or a corroder, excuse me. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's funny, like, this to me is probably a faction staple card.
It is. It's 100% is. No, it is. And I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy playing this card, but also because I think it's boring. Like, that's another problem that this tier list doesn't touch. I none of this sparks joy in me. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, I can't remember a time where a fractor has sparked joy and been healthy for the game.
You're right. You're very right. Because
like,
well, no, Propeller.
Lady
You like
Joy wasn't healthy. Paperclip Spark Joy wasn't healthy. Corroder Spark No Joy also arguably wasn't healthy.
There's like 6 hours of footage on the internet of you talking positively about Propeller.
Yeah. And Propeller has proven to be maybe a little bit too strong.
Yep. Yeah, it's Corroder. It's fine.
Actually, I will say, with all the 3 strength barriers seeing play again, Propeller looks much sillier than it used to.
Using half your Propeller in a Maskarovka feels really bad.
You feel like such a chump.
It feels so bad. Yeah, I don't like it, but it's fine. It's Propeller. So just for context, what people are doing with this too is you see Shaper decks that are running one Rising Tide and a bunch of Propellers. That seems okay. I think Principia we'll get to. That's an interesting card to some extent, but this card is showing up in weird places. I've seen it in Moosely Hot on top of like 3 Marjanas.
Yeah. I think I saw a screenshot of this being at like 6 strength somehow. Like,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, if the meta ever like requires that to be a thing you can pursue, yeah, maybe you can pursue that. But right now,
like, it doesn't
getting
seem
to 3 strength
honestly,
fast.
Yeah, like barriers are one of the better subtypes for taxing runners in like the weird twisted, upside down world that we're in at the moment. And so like, yeah, it could be a home. I also want to say like this is a banger Scott Uminga alt art, and this one I'm not too worried about ending up on a ban list. So
Yeah, the art's good. It's like another Scott Uminga art card, if I'm not mistaken, that ends up with like a Spirit Island name.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. All right, we got Cacophony. Unique 3-cost virtual resource. The first time each turn you either steal or trash a corp card, and I like it just says steal a corp card. It doesn't mention agenda. It's like you'll figure out what you're stealing. Place 1 power counter on this resource, and then when your action phase ends, you may remove 2 hosted power counters to sabotage 3. Notably, we saw this way more on the corp side than the runner side, is that so many paid abilities or like these sort of abilities, conditional abilities, are now firing at the end of the discard phase. I'm pretty sure Null Signal Games got a bit of feedback from the last cycle that there were so many start a turn triggers, and I don't know if this was panic run the other way, because I've seen games where most of the game is the start a turn trigger, and they're like, okay, we'll figure it out, and this is the opposite. It's 4 influence. For what it's worth, sabotaging when your turn is ended is the worst time to sabotage, because your corporation knows that you cannot access those cards. So if they have a Spin Doctor in hand or Recursion, or they can score an agenda with PD, whatever you can imagine, they can fix the problem that they've just caused. So there is a downside to this, but this is a card that can technically sabotage infinite. Well, not really, because the corp runs out of cards, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Boy, I have seen this card installed. I have yet to see this card do a thing that really felt like it was relevant to the game. The game, it's like if I, as the corp, every other turn I'm sabotaging 3, well, that also means that I'm losing a card every turn from my board, and I'm probably losing because of that, not because Cacophony triggered. And so it's often like
about that.
When I see Cacophony come down, like, great, you just spent a click and 3 credits, and it made no difference on whether or not I'm going to win or lose this game, except that you're now down resources.
It does put you slightly more on a clock. Like I had to be like, okay, I have to go slightly faster because this can be a problem. But I 100% agree with that. It is very funny. If you're trashing that many cards, I have a problem.
Yeah, and like, I saw someone be like, "Oh, this," I saw, and I don't want to clown on people because it's new card types. Like, this could be better than twinning, and it's like, no, this is just not going to be better than twinning in anything we have at the moment. I think, like, I would still probably prefer to play twinning in a mulch deck over a Cacophony.
So yeah, I think the thing I can defend this with is like, this is. For 1 card coming down, imagine you can install it for free and maybe you get it off of your Gachapon, I don't know, your price or whatever. I'll hope for it. This is a lot of pressure on 1 card without requiring you to do anything. Technically, twinning does fall in that camp, and sometimes installing twinning for 3 feels a bit expensive in some games, so this is going to have the same problem. But if you're in a meta where like it's just asset spam and you're just playing like Lou assets and you put this down, like you're kind of coasting and you're putting off enough pressure as much as you're going to run into a Regenesis problem with the Oko at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, yes, if I'm playing Lou and this ends up on my board, yeah, that's going to help my board to some extent. But the cost of getting it onto the table, I feel like it's so hard for this card to actually pay off that cost and separate that from how good my board state had to be for me to get the trigger on this card.
How many sabotage do you think you need to get off of this to think that you've done well for your money? 3 is a lot.
Sabotage 3 is a lot, but I feel like I need at least 2, maybe 3 triggers for me to feel like I've gotten value out of this. But then I've also trashed 6 of the corpse cards, which is just a generic. Like, if I'm in that state, things are probably going well for me. That's the hard thing for me to disentangle with this, is the like.
Yeah, but that's like the thing that doesn't make sense to me is like people are happy to play Stushka, which is 3, and you have to deal with ice to sabotage 4. This is not as good because you're doing a last click. You can't run archives. And the big thing about Chastushka is that you're playing Essa and you're probably doing more sabotage in a single turn. And sabotage scales non-linearly. I haven't seen this in an Essa deck because not a lot of this text lines up with Essa. Like this feels more like maybe a Phoenix card, but probably more like a mulch card, right?
Yeah, I think so. The difference between something like Cherstushka is like that it lands and like the corp can't see it coming.
Yeah.
And it pays out the click
Immediately.
you play it, right?
Yeah.
This is I need to install this and then jump through a hoop this turn and a hoop next turn to get my first trigger. Then a hoop the turn after that and a hoop the turn after. Like it's just like I have committed myself to jumping through a lot of hoops. And unlike the twinning, which the hoop for the twinning is play some of the best cards in the faction already and just install or break ice or play events, which shockingly are things you need to be doing and provide you forward tempo. This needs to be like, I need to be against the right type of corp deck or have constructed my deck very, very particularly. Like Gourmand becomes the most important card. Like if I play up against, again, like a Glacier PD or a Glacier LEO, if I can't get into that remote, this is just a card that literally is dead because I have to start trashing their ice if I'm going to try and hope to even get this to trigger at all.
It's like, is such a build around that you can't just put in Reg Hosh is my guess, unless the meta is like really horizontal. And even then, I don't think it's the best card you can put in. So like, if it doesn't see slots in mulch, I don't know where you put it.
Yeah. And I just don't feel like it slots in mulch. Like,
it might not. Like Augustina totally is also a card you can play and people don't play that. And that even like has the same amount of impact, but it's cheaper to get down.
Yeah, I would play Augustina before Cacophony, I think.
Which is why we need Gourmand to be a virus. Please.
Binder? Yeah. Because I don't think it's not like it's fighting for a slot. It's just not going to earn a slot, I think.
All right, last Anarch card we have, it's Rent Rioters. It's a 2-cost connection that gives you credits. That's really cool because that technically works with Seb as much as it also works with Topan. You spend most of your turn, three clicks, and you trash this to gain 9 credits. It's 1 influence, so it's technically splashable, and maybe Baz wants to play this. This is a 7-credit econ card as much as it's slow. The slow is real, slow is a problem, but having a lot of credits on a single card and a slow card has classically been an Anarch thing that in some metas is worth pursuing, things like liberated accounts. Shout out also, of course, to Day Job. With this mimics Day Job. As much as Day Job was your full turn, this gives you some flexibility and again has a bit more synergy with some of the other identities you can play. I have been more impressed with this than I think a lot of other folks have. I feel like the game has slowed down enough that it can actually spend the 4 clicks on this and break them across a couple turns. And when I take those 9 credits, I'm feeling okay about it. Like, I actually don't mind this.
Yeah, I think people are underrating this a little bit because this is actually paying out better than the first. Like, I want to make sure my math is right here.
Yeah.
But I think this pays out. No, okay, this pays out. Wait, does this pay out better than Liberated?
Liberated is what, 10 credits in 5 clicks?
It's 10 credits for 4 clicks. This is 7 for 4. So this is noticeably worse.
But you don't have to pay 6, right? And then you cheat it out.
I'm paying 4 less, and it's cheatable in a couple of different ways.
This is 1 credit less than Telework, but Telework you can't liberate all the credits immediately, but it is the same amount of clicks over time. And Telework is like a fine card, not great, but it's fine.
Yeah, and this feels like it's probably a little bit weaker than Telework, but if you can find ways to reduce its cost, it becomes arguably a little bit better. Like Telework, a 1 cost reduction is a little bit tricky to find, and like when you're building cost reduction effects, you often want to stack them because it just makes your deck more consistent at finding them, and then Telework doesn't give you that payoff, whereas this in theory does. And as we've talked about, Topan and Seb both have synergies with this to get it down for for free. So this is not an exciting card. This is not a card that goes. I think it's definitely not a faction staple, but I think the game
show up in decks.
It will. It's definitely more of a reg deck card. But just like money is harder to come by on the runner side, like way, way harder to come by than it used to be. And so just having a bailout, like boom, I gained +7 this turn is not the end of the world.
with the card pool shrinking, you can like really take certain factions and boil them down to, oh, they have 2 economy engines. And it turns out half the factions, the answer is Fermenter. And it's okay. This is not Fermenter if you ask me, but like you need more econ cards in your deck usually. I honestly think this card's fine. It's not A tier, but it'll see play.
Yeah, it's like a one of in a lot of different decks, I feel like. I guess, so does that, if we say it's a one of in a lot, I think that's fine.
It doesn't enable anything, but it's like, if it shows up, I'm not batting an eyelid. I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, you know, that was your 45th card. There's not a better 45th econ slot I can put in.
That's all the Anarch cards. Again,
I
need to reiterate, I don't think you had to print another new Anarch card in the set, but they did. They printed a whole bunch of them, and that's like cool. I do think runners, again, were more powerful than corporations. And as much as these cards are slots are hard, they're pretty cool cards. And I do think we believe some of these actually can be massive cards in the correct meta. We just don't think we're in that meta right now.
Yeah, very much so. I guess I wonder, as I'm saying that, we should put Dupont above Scrounge, because I think the thing for Dupont to become meta relevant is like rotation or a ban. Whereas like Scrounge to become meta relevant is like
weird. Cool. All right, let's go into criminal. This is gonna be fun. This is Baz. The Triumph veteran, him, cyborg identity. He's got 1 robot arm that just keeps happening on the criminals. Whenever the corp reses a piece of ice, you may install a resource or piece of hardware from your grip. Try me 4515. I have heartbreaking news. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and try him I have, and boy, I love him and know that he is not the best criminal deck by any stretch of the imagination, but I have had so much fun playing him, and that's good enough for me for right now. But
that's my heartbreaking news. I was so excited to play better as, and honestly, I was a bit worried because as is cool. I like as a lot, and I didn't want a thing that just blows as out of the water. And from my testing, it has been frustrating because it doesn't consistently do anything. You enter that point in the game where the ice is rezzed, and then you have a blank text box. You can play a bit of derez if you want to, but this just has been so much more effort, weirdly enough, compared to just playing any of the reg crim stuff. And I haven't felt a build that felt like I'm jumping through the right hoops for the right rewards.
That's fun. Maybe it's because I have not been playing that many of the other reg crims, but I've been playing like a reg crim shell that just like swaps out a couple of cards for a few nice synergy points, and feeling like I get to bully people in a way that not a lot of other reg crims haven't been able to.
The angles which you interact are good, like forcing them to res and ice and then like instant boomeranging it or flip switching, but also just like dropping a class act for free with Chesva or getting down, like that's really nice. That's a good free click every turn. It's a powerful ability.
Yeah, and like I've found that like if you build your deck in an unexciting way, it can pay out. But it's not a he looks like a synergy ID, and I don't think he's a synergy ID. I think he's a value ID, and it's a rough value to be tied to rezzing ice when not every corp in the meta is going to be about rezzing ice.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've heard the idea that like you build your deck to punish them from not rezzing ice, and I think if that's the case, I'd rather still not play Baz. I'll play probably Sable, let's be honest.
Sable is probably the best case scenario for that. I think it's like, oh yeah, if I'm expecting a mix, then Baz maybe can have a small edge. I've been playing a lot of Penny Shaver Baz over Hermes Baz because you're encouraging the corpse to res their ice more. Like you're just inherently, that's kind of the game pattern you're going for. Hermes loses some of its value, and having the Penny Shaver punishment for if they choose to not res the ice has been a little bit more consistent and helped smooth out the econ for me quite a bit. And then it also helps in those matchups where, the corp doesn't have any ice to res. Well, check asset, click for 4. Yeah, feels okay.
We're also like in a really strong Chesva meta, and Baz is another really great Chesva enjoyer, which is just a very satisfying program to play. Yeah,
Chesva, like this is like we're in peak Chesva right now, and I've been playing 3 Chesvas in Baz, and they feel like it's like, man, I almost wish I could play a 6MU so I could get all 3 of them down, because I would I could use all of them.
Really good. I don't know. Flavor, fantastic. Playstyle, really fun. I have not made it convert. I want to see good Baz decks. If a tournament gets won by a Baz deck, I'm going to be a huge fan of that deck probably. I just don't know what it is, and I don't believe in it. Slots?
I think it's like a role player.
I don't think it's a real deck.
I think it's more real than Phoenix.
I don't. Phoenix, nothing does Phoenix. This just feels like Red Crim with like a different install pattern. And like, there's better Red Crims. Like, to me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get roasted for this, but for me, it feels like comparing Topan to Hoshiko. One of them is just better. Like comparing this to Sable.
I think Sable is not universally better than Baz.
Ooh, okay.
I think in a heavy Glacier meta, I would much rather play Baz than Sable.
I could see myself agreeing with that.
Now that said, that doesn't guarantee it. So that would be my argument for putting him in role player. Not because that's a likely meta or a super strong case, but I think there's situations where you might want to be like, you could plausibly be Baz in a way that, like, right now Dupont is just like, you should always play Hosh, but like boomeranging from hand is just such a powerful thing that you can do. Yeah. And like no other criminal gets to do that right now. Because you're not going to tell me that even just masterworking installing at the start of the run is actually weaker than what Baz gets to do, because you get to hold the boomerang until you need to use it. Like you get that Arasana like ability.
But you can masterwork on every run forever, regardless of ice state. Like I don't think masterwork is dead, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah. It's not masterwork. That's for sure.
Yeah. There is a hardware synergy deck. I don't think it is necessarily in Baz. Like it might actually be still in As. We might not just have better As, or we might just have a different though Baz might still be better As if we really dig into the hardware archetype.
Yeah, maybe. I take it you want this.
That's where I would rank them. Yes.
It's on your channel. I have the mouse,
fair.
but
that's fair.
I'm not going to fight further than that. That's okay. I do. Okay, I'll fine. I won't fight. We have another criminal. It's Moosely Hot, multifarious marketeer, she, her, natural identity, 4515. When your turn begins, look at the top card of your stack. If that card is an icebreaker or a run event, you may reveal it and add it to your grip, so your opponent will know you have it. You obviously get a free card draw. How many? Yeah, what's your percentage?
I think I haven't finished watching your stream from the other day, but I think you can make this 100% and still have a playable deck.
Yeah, last night on the stream, for those who don't know, Pat and I played 100% hits Moosely Hot deck and just ripped along, just had the most fun time. Finality, play 3 finality. It's a run event that sees cards. Yeah. I don't know. I think like the average,
I think probably like somewhere, like probably want to be somewhere in the 60 to 70% hit range, maybe. And that's like, you're not cutting too many, you're barely changing good crim decks to do that, I think.
No, it's like if you blanked the identity and you handed the crim deck to someone and said like, this is my Sable deck, they'd be like, oh, you should probably put a info bounty in it, and then that's probably all their feedback, right? Like it's not absurd.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, cut the worst 2 events and put in info bounties. And it's like, that, or like, oh, cut this influence for a different draw card. It's like, I would totally do that if I could, but I have drawn my ID, so I don't need to. Like this to me, like, is a definitional staple card. Whenever I'm looking at building a red crim deck, I'm gonna look at the Moosely Hot deck, and it's gonna be so close to the red crim. Like the difference between this and Sable and this and Zaya, it's like 4 to 5 slots, and so the 3 of them are gonna like pass back and forth. Who's the best red crim? I think
that's the thing, though. Is like I don't know what it would take in terms of the meta for me to believe this was the best option. And I just think Sable is just so good. Like I'm so Sable pilled that if you said, should I play Sable tomorrow at the event or play Moosely Hot? Maybe I'm going to be surprised that you get a couple extra card draw from Moosely Hot. Like maybe drawing 7 cards in a 10 turn game is enough. I don't know. But like Sable is good basically every turn of the game. That's the thing that I don't see. Like, I think you can fix criminal you can fix criminal card draw by importing cards, and you probably still need to have some card draw Moosely Hot. That I can't tell whether this seems clearly better than Sable.
I think again, if we look at a more Glacier meta, I think Moosely Hot starts looking a little bit better because you don't need to run through ice to get your ID trigger.
But you don't want to run events in a Glacier meta.
I don't know that you don't necessarily. Like we're going to talk about some of the run events. I think there's actually like 2 run events in the set, or actually, honestly, all of the run events in the set, I don't mind playing too much in a Glacier meta. Okay. Tread Lightly is not going to see a lot of play, but I don't mind in a Glacier. Like, I think there's stuff that you can do with run events to click. I mean, Bravado is also a run event, right? And that is,
Yeah,
you know,
but yeah, it does make sense. If the runs are expensive, make a better run, and that's what run events do. I'm agreeing faction staple. I think I'm just trying to argue. I'm not sure where it is amongst the other like 2 to 3 very good criminal run based things you could do. Not even run based, but like good things.
Yeah, and I suspect that right now Deep Dive Sable seems like, in early tournament reports, the runner deck.
Good.
And I don't think that Muslahat is going to like match those heights immediately, but I also think that like we're going to see Muslahat as a percentage of the runner, a notable percentage of the runner field at many events, and probably doing well at quite a few. So
I think it's also going to be like, and this is not exactly tier list stuff. I tell new players to play Zaya. I think playing Zaya will teach you better criminal fundamentals than playing Muslahat, but I think more people want to play Muslahat because it feels more fun to them to just free draw cards.
I think Muslahat's like an easier deck building identity. So like the first time I say, build your own criminal deck, I might say build a Muslahat deck. But when I say learn to play Netrunner, I'm going to hand them a Zaya deck, right? Yes. And like I think that's kind of interesting, right? That that's you have cool. This. Yeah. Here's how to learn to build, first building steps and good play pattern fundamentals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you can still consider Zaya for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Run event. And a good one. Clean getaway. Get it? It took me a while. It costs 3. It's run any server. And if successful, gain 6 credits. Dirty Laundry just got not banned, but rotated. And that gave you the credits after the run is successful, as much as it cost 1 less and paid off 1 less. This you get the credits before you start breaching cards, which is sick. Now it's a criminal card and it costs 2 influence, which is, if you want to splash this, like people will look at you kind of funny, but it might not be wrong. Yeah. Like that's a good card.
Yeah, I've been splashing. I had splashed this a bunch in Shaper lists, and then Eric made fun of me, so I stopped. Yep. And then I was like, wait, but my decks just got worse. I'm going to go back to splashing this again.
Yeah. And, it's like people splash Bravado. Do you think this is better splash than Bravado for less influence?
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe. I think unless you're like, oh, I need cards 44 and 45, I think this is probably better because it's as soon as there's one asset matchup, this card looks so much better than Bravado in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, to me, like this is Dirty Laundry was in most decks, and this is better than Dirty Laundry. Like
this is just really good. It's better Dirty Laundry. Yeah, I have no notes. Like you're gonna play this in every criminal deck forever, bar none. It's not neutral, so I don't think you're gonna see it everywhere. But like, it's one of the best cards in the set. It's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Lilo. 1 cost, double, so 2 clicks. Resolve one of the following. It's either draw 4 cards or remove up to 2 tags. It is 1 influence. This is like in a long time, barring Muslahat, like the first genuine criminal card draw card I think we've seen since Ashes with Class Act. I'm probably missing a niche card there. But it's still a card I haven't been consistently putting in my criminal decks. Am I wrong?
It's unclear to me. Like I look at like, for a long time, criminal players have been like, oh, I'll splash Dr. Nuka or I'll splash, excuse me, Diesel. Diesel's rotated.
Yeah.
And sometimes Steel Skin. I have been splashing a little bit of Steel Skin, but that's in a Mimi Cybernetics criminal deck. And that's fun. I got to clown on a Jinteki player who thought they had me dead, and I'm like, no, I've got 2 Steel Skins in hand.
They're really upset about it.
Like this is not a card you're super thrilled to put in your deck, but like I would argue, especially for people that are like, oh, I'm going to play Dr. Nuka, I might look at Lilo first if you have a good use of that 2 influence, because this is the first this is the first trigger on Dr. Nuka, slightly better even than the first trigger on Dr. Nuka, right?
It's so weird. So like you can spread Nuka, but the idea is that you install Nuka, you use Nuka. That's 2 clicks and a credit for draw 3. This is 2 clicks immediately for draw 4. That's cool.
Yeah, and then you have the optionality mode of like, oh, I'm against an NBN matchup. Let's save 3 credits and clear 2 tags.
Never seen anyone do that. Not once have I seen that fire.
But I think that says more to do about the state of the NBN Corp decks than anything else. I'm like, if we get into a more interactive tag-based NBN meta, I think you start saying, oh, you know what, that upside is worth me exploring Lilo, and you start going, oh, the draw mode on Lilo is probably just barely good enough to play, and that might be the shift we see.
What's really frustrating, unlike lawyer up account siphon from an old meta, is that there is no good criminal card that gives you 2 tags. So like, do you do 1 transfer of wealth and just float? Probably you can't do that. You're playing twinning. And that really gets me. It's like, there's no good way to take 2 tags. How are you asking me to clear 2 tags? I'll just keep
You're
playing.
supposed to go transfer of wealth, then lie low, right?
Exactly.
That's your whole turn.
But the neat thing about this that I've yet to see, but if you're playing a false lead deck, how often do you fire this against criminal on click 1? Like, that's the weird thing. You have to false lead now on clicks 2 and 3, because if they do click 1, they ask you, you don't do anything, then they lie low, you blow through the false lead window. It's like kind of neat.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I don't know. I'm like convinced this is better than the amount of play that it's seeing. I think this is going to take us time to like rewire our brains when we're building criminal decks, but this is cromulent criminal card draw. Like, it's fine.
Man, I stopped myself from using cromulent earlier because I was in the conversation and was like, what does this cromulent mean? But I'm glad that someone else has done it, so we can just move on without explaining. I don't think it's a faction staple. I feel like it's probably an archetype role player.
I think if people stop flashing Nuka, this should be in every criminal deck. It's class act.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. As soon as you have a better use of that 2 influence, you should be playing this. Yeah.
This is not that much worse than Nuka. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, clearly it's not now, but like it's fine. It's kind of fine. I'm also disgusted that you can play Sable and you can lie low and still deep dive on the same turn. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's another problem. But
that's
like,
criminal.
It still just happens and it's wild. Okay. Do we need to move that down?
No, we'll leave it. We'll leave it where it is. We cool. Try. I think we've stated in the past that faction staples can be weaker than archetype enablers.
Oh, easily.
So yeah, I think that's fine.
All right, next up, maintenance access is a double run event. So another double. This is a run event, cost 0. Run archives, and you would approach archives after passing all ice. Instead, change the attack server to HQ and approach HQ. It's 3 influence. You approach HQ, so you've successfully made a run on HQ, not archives, for deep dive or Jachinyo or all that sort of fun stuff. This card is the new Sneak Door Beta. Sneak Door Beta was cool in decks I want to run HQ every turn. This is showing up in decks I want to run HQ sometimes strategically, or because you're playing against Nebula. This card is much better than I thought it was when I first saw it.
Yeah, this was one of those cards where, like, in playtesting, this card started way stronger, and we just kept seeing it nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. And it was just like, yeah, I was convinced this card was still very playable. And it was very interesting to see everyone react and say it's very unplayable. And, you know, maybe we'll find out after this weekend. No one's playing a single copy of it, but I doubt it. I think this card, not just because we're in a meta where there is a lot of Nebula, though I think that certainly helps this card. I think just like the best uses of Sneak Door was often like install Sneak Door, use it that turn, and then it's like actually blank for the rest of the game. Corp throws one eyes on archives and say, no, I'm done. And like the MU and 4 credit install costs was huge, on like way bigger on Sneak Door than I think people were kind of giving it credit for when evaluating maintenance access.
Yep.
And criminals have a lot of ways to make it's like, oh yeah, I can make one run on HQ really hurt with the twinning. Some cards we'll talk about later.
Mercury,
Docklins,
Copulation.
Yeah.
You got lots of options.
Yeah, I've been,
the other one we're talking about,
like, and also like Panweave has been a stealthy like upgrade as everyone's econ gets worse. Panweave gets better, and I have maintenance access to get a Panweave trigger, so the corp couldn't score an agenda the following turn. And it was like, yeah, we're playing real like in the mud Netrunner here.
Yes,
and that was a great time.
I do think this does feel like good, scrappy, fundamental pressure, and I'm always going to like those cards, and I'll hope that they're playable, and I think this one's definitely playable. I haven't built a criminal deck that doesn't have one of it, and when I draw it, I'm never not happy. Nice.
Yeah, totally.
It's hard to say what Rising Tide should be.
I know, because like we are going to, like, Rising Tide is just going to be the Anarch Fractor. Like, there's just not really another choice, but like...
Yeah, like, what are you going to play, Begamut? No, like, I don't know. That's fine. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. 0 cost. Transfer wealth, run event, run HQ. If successful, take 1 tag, and the corp loses 3 credits. You gain 2 credits for each credit lost this way. This is the new doof, the new account siphon. It's 4 influence. Notable changes. It's not optional. Good luck. You're taking that tag no matter what happens. Also, you access cards. That's like kind of sick. It's like Hot
Yeah.
Pursuit meets Account Siphon. I'm so happy that Core Environment now has a reason to Ice HQ. It's not that easy to recur this in Core, but you can recur this if you really try to, if you're playing Standard. I haven't seen any decks really leaning into that the way that you did with Account Siphon, for the better. Yeah, it's good. It's Account Siphon. It's fine. The tag's ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. The tag's ugly. The like, if they duck it, you still getting the tag feels like really rough.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that happen
like,
way more than I thought it would too. It's like people are realizing, oh, I'm just going to res this. Oh, okay. And you can't jack out because they have to commit to access, then they res their stuff. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like way fairer, which does mean it's just a worse card than its Account Siphon comparator.
Sure.
I think this is interesting relative to Doof. I don't know right away. Like, I still am not sure if it's stronger or weaker than Diversion of Funds, which is what we've been calling Doof. Apologies for people that are newer. That's an incomprehensible acronym.
Start making random sounds. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I've enjoyed playing Transfer of Wealth. I haven't always played 3 copies. I often have been finding myself playing just 2, because it's not a card I'm universally excited to draw. Like, Account Siphon, I would gladly Account Siphon a corporation through 2 ice. I have not been super thrilled to Transfer of Wealth through 2 ice in a lot of cases.
I've been happier, and it's mostly because I have the access. Like, I wouldn't doof on a lot of board states just for the minimal credit swing, but if I'm going to make the run on HQ, I might as well throw a doof on top of it. And that's what I've been really liking. It's just like, it's fine. Yeah. It's generally a 6 credit econ card. They lose money. I still touch cards. And if I didn't touch cards, I would not be excited about this. This, mind you, also is massive right now in the format as like the card that is keeping Sebastião alive. And Seb is doing really well right now, it seems, in early competitive play. And it's mostly because you can spend 2 to 3 copies of this in a deck. And that's a very good Seb card.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I don't know. I think you're gonna see this in every criminal deck. Like, Diversion of Funds is a faction staple, right? Like, this is a faction staple.
Yeah. I would put this below Clean Getaway. We could put it above Muslahat.
Oh, yeah. We definitely put it above Muslahat. Yeah. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Criminal Console.
We should probably say, actually, well,
no, go ahead.
Before we go to the next card, we should say, we talked a lot of this earlier in this video about how, like, runner side did not need any cards, and we'd expect, the distribution of Anarch was pretty normal, and then we're just putting like all of these Anarch cards in faction staple. We should give some context of Criminal saw basically no competitive play in the last year and had seen very rare high placements in the previous 2 to 3 years. So seeing Criminal given some specific boosts makes a lot of sense, especially because also the ban list targeted Daily Cast, which is a card that Criminal relied on more so than Shaper or Anarch, which had some alternatives, even though they would often still play it. Criminal felt like it was their only econ that wasn't based on making a run. And so we're seeing Criminal get a lot more kind of just generic juice put into the faction than we did with Anarch, which has been a faction that's been top dog of Netrunner since more or less 2018.
I do want to say also, like, a really big part of this, and luckily, is like it's startup, it's core. Like, name a criminal card in the startup format before this came out that gives you money. Like, the criminal card pool for startup was so uneven, and so just locking in some fundamentals so every core startup criminal has cash, they had huge problems if you look at old startup. So this just like evens that out. It gives criminal more options, which is good, because they hadn't printed, I think, a criminal econ card, a good criminal econ card since, I honestly don't know what. Like, it's been so many years.
Yeah, like Chesvi was probably like the best criminal econ card in startup from Elevation or Borealis cycles.
Yep, you're like playing red team and stuff, which you probably still are in startup for what it's worth.
Yeah,
but yeah,
well, I think red team got better in the set too.
Yeah,
but
it did. It definitely did. All right, we got a 3-cost console is Détente. It gives you 1 MU. The first time each turn you make a successful run on HQ, you may host 1 card from HQ at random face up on this hardware. So that is an option, but before you access to breach cards, you have to take a card out of the corpse hand and you slap it onto this. It's revealed so everyone sees it, so you don't get any like game losses by mawing unaccurately. Now, what do those cards do? Nothing, but you can spend a click to add 2 of as many hosted cards on this back to HQ. It has to be at least 2, but you can pick the 2, and then the runner may choose to access a card at HQ at random. Notably, this is not a breach, this is an axis, and there's way fewer cards that interact with axis that do breach. Breach would be very good because you can fire your Docklands Pass and probably your Zaya. I'm not sure Zaya's text. However, the kicker here is any player can use this ability. So the corp can say, give me my cards back, or you can say, here's 2 agendas back. I'm going to touch a card in HQ. Again, you can't access more cards. There's just no way to do it. No, Compilation may be able to do it. Maybe that's the only way. Maybe no, that's during a breach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's during a breach. So yeah, just enjoy your single. 3 influence. This was a spoiler card I had on the channel. Really cool card, really flavorful. This is quite bad. Oh man, anytime the runner installs this, I'm so happy. It could have been a Hermes.
Yeah, this could have been a Hermes. This could have been a Penny Shaver. Like, this could have been any other console in the game, basically, and it would have more impact. This is like a very much like, as a corp, you have to protect HQ. If you just let the runner run HQ forever, I think you are going to lose.
Yeah, but just put like, 2 ice on HQ. Who cares? Yeah.
I mean, this console is, I think, very fun. I expected to see a lot of like casual and janky builds.
You think it's fun? I've had so many frustrations with this where I run HQ, detaunt the agenda, and access the scorched earth or whatever. Sorry, the end of the line. Like, I've actually been frustrated playing this because you have so little control over what happens. Now you have to run back. Cool line, by the way, is if you install your second console, whether it's a detaunt or not, it trashes the cards hosted on it. There's some power level here. I've played this in Phoenix and enjoyed it because you have HQ disruption. It was like, it gets cut eventually out of your 17 influence. But
I mean, the power play with detaunt is to detaunt, put an agenda on it, and then buy a band's archives, install a Hermes, steal the agenda, and bounce a card in the board state, and now you have an actually good console installed.
It's a dream. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like every time this is played, I've actually been really happy as a corporation. Again, just to put in context, if you're not running HQ every turn, if the corporation now mandatory draws into 6 cards in hand and adds 2 cards from this back to their hand, and there's 1 agenda in 8, and you're going for a single, you successfully lay away their agenda in a safe spot so that they can grab it later when they've stabilized through the early game. It is kind of nonsense.
I was just say, well, that's it. If you think they're flood, you can just not trigger it. But it's like, okay, so I paid 3 cost to have a console that does nothing. That gives me 1 MU. Like,
No, I died 0 out of 10. I think the flavor is great. I don't care for this card at all.
Yeah.
Mag Electric, though, 1 cost, unique Mag Electric Rapid 748 mod. It's a weapon. There is a bit of weapon synergy in the card pool. Whenever you make a successful run on HQ, you may trash this hardware to derez an installed corp card. Now, this is right before the run's successful, or sorry, when you make a successful run, so that's before you breach and touch cards. This can derez assets and upgrades. In theory, that's a niche thing, but it can matter sometimes. Hostile architectures are expensive. Plutus, whatever. This is the new emergency shutdown, and I like it a lot better.
Yeah, it is. It's tricky because emergency shutdown was like extremely difficult to slot, and this is still difficult to slot, but it is much better than emergency shutdown because you don't have to, like, emergency shutdown was I have to make the run, hold the emergency shutdown the whole time, spend the click on emergency shutdown, and then spend another click too. So it was basically like a 3-click commitment because I needed to be able to exploit that ice being turned over. And Mag Electric Rapid says, oh, I can do that. I can do those across a whole bunch of different turns as needed, which is a huge improvement.
The interaction with Hermes is also just hella sick because you can run HQ, derez their massive ice, steal an agenda, and now they can't, like, the ice is back in hand if you want it to be. Like, it just plays so smoothly. Pre-boarding this on an off click for that power turn. That's one of my favorite things about Criminal, and I feel like the card pool has kind of been missing in this for a while. This sort of like heist vibe that I'm going to install something and then I'm going to go on this like daring adventure and like have a real cool caper and blow things up. Like, you can set up and then you pay off and you separate those 2 into 2 different turns, which is very, very fun.
Yeah,
I do think this. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say because there's been a lot of Nebula in the early part of the meta, which is just a deck that's like, I'm just going to ice 2 servers. I'm going to spend lots of money. It's just being like, I get to turn off your most expensive ice. Or you're playing against Wayland, I get to turn off your Biowalk. Like, that's been making this feel really nice and clean in this meta. It's like, I want to play 2. I'm often only playing 1 right now, but like it's been a very nice and performant card.
The thing is, like, I don't think it's an enabler because we don't have like derez, hell enabler, econ denial, criminal very obviously, as much as you can play panweave and transfers. But I would say this can and probably should show up in a lot of criminal decks as a 1-of. It's a really nice tech card.
Yeah, I think it's like a role player. I think is fine. Like, it's a denial crim card.
That's fine.
But like, and there's gonna be like Sable's not gonna look at it, right? Deep Dive Sable's not gonna look at it. But but
no reason.
Denial based crim is gonna play probably one copy, maybe 2.
Yeah, 1-to-1. Okay, cool. We have a breaker. Pronunciation, I think, is Sung Con Chill. Something closer to that, excuse me. I didn't review this before we recorded. 3 to install, 1 MU. It's a decoder icebreaker. It breaks 1-for-1 code gate subroutine. It comes in at 2 strength, and you can pay 3 credits to increase its strength by 2. But if this is during a run, that's a run event run, it costs 2 less to boost. So it becomes 1 for 2 strength, which is quite generous. It's only 2 influence. In terms of the code gates right now, what code gate strengths are you breaking? I feel like there's a fair bit of 4-cost code gates in the meta with like Mesny, Npot, Scatterfield, MIC. Like 4 strength is not uncommon.
Yeah, it's probably the most common. It's like that and like 0 and 1 strength are, I feel like, the most common right now. I've seen so many people like flame this card, just be like, play Unity, and I'm like, I feel like this is basically Unity but blue. Like I don't know. I think people are like, the run event cost is like not that big of a cost for a lot of criminal decks. I feel like people imagine the number of turns they don't play run events is actually a little bit higher than it is. Like you're not going to play this deep dive Sable, but like I don't know. This just seems fine. I don't know. I feel like people are lower on this than they need to be.
I think Criminal has like this weird scattering of just fine decoders, right? Like I can argue Sung Console, Cat's Cradle, Shibboleth are all arguably fine, that I don't feel really strongly about one over the other unless I can get a really good meta breakdown to be like, this is the strength of ice you're running into consistently. Like Sung Console and 2 strength is, I think, better than Cat's Cradle and Shibboleth after threat. That means you don't sweat VSA, which doesn't really exist. Afshar is 1, so I guess you don't care. I don't know if there's any big breakpoints.
Like this is one of those cards where it's like, if Enigma was printed, this would just be the only decoder that was criminals were running, right? And it's like, well, because the breakpoints for are 1, 0, and like have a decoder or have a high strength decoder, it's not clear. Like this is not a clear winner.
I do think, like, especially against assets, you do get in an awkward situation where like you don't have an appropriate run event to run the Scatterfield ice. I think that's the downside. Like spending 4 to 5 for a Scatterfield does kind of suck. Now you do have boomerangs as much as you lost Amakua, so you're actually more reliant on breakers, it feels. So I can't feel great about that. Maybe in the early game, Shibboleth is still, I think, maybe 3 to 4 to break a Scatterfield. At least I install it cheaper. I can't tell. I do want to say anecdotally, the 100% whammies, the no whammies Moosely Hot deck ended up cutting this for Shibboleth, and that's because the deck had no money, because it was just cheaper to install. But like, it was felt fine. It was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like our evaluations of breakers have been classically kind of weird in these like tier lists that like I'm not excited about this card. Like if it didn't exist, I don't think it changes criminals. Like you just play one of the other code gates and I don't think it matters.
Yeah. I mean, again, like this is filling out the cycle for core gameplay. You can now play this in your system gateway and elevation criminal list. So you don't have to splash for your decoder.
But say that you're playing Reg Crim, you're playing your Baz deck. What is your decoder? Are you on Buzzsaw?
I was on Buzzsaw, but was having money issues. So then I switched over to Shibboleth.
Right. Like Shibbo is fine.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like we're in a Chesva meta where like the downside of Shibboleth gets naturally kind of fixed because by the mid to late game when you're on threat 4 or whatever the number is, I think it's 4, you have those coffee credits, which is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, to me, maybe we call the slots are hard. Maybe it's an archetype role player. I'm not quite sure.
I'd be surprised to see this in any deck that's not Moosely Hot.
Yeah. But I think like it's okay to run a Moosely Hot. Like it's probably fine, right?
It's probably
fine. If I'm in Moosely Hot, I'm maybe already thinking about playing Tread Lightly's or Overclocks. Like this becomes a pretty solid card.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As much as you could probably replace it, I don't think it moves the needle that much.
Yeah.
Okay. Brand Sophia Ward, unique connection, cost 3. It has Xanadu's text on it. The res cost of each piece of ice is increased by 1. And then it says, whenever you encounter a piece of ice, if the corp has 15 or more credits, you may trash this resource to bypass that ice. Notably, these feel a bit anti-synergistic, but the idea is that technically the ice can already be resed. You don't need Francifia top to fire for Francifia bottom to fire. So at least you have something maybe for all board states. It is the same amount of influence as Xanadu, as much as it's Criminal, which is a faction that can more accurately leverage D-Res and Econ Denial, which maybe is a more natural inclusion now that we've lost Reyna and all that sort of stuff. How often have you seen a corp play have more than 15 credits? That's not like a fully op
Uh,
combo deck.
I feel like this may have been more in testing than live play. There would be like some, or like, some like Plutus decks maybe will
Yeah,
get to like
maybe.
20 credits pretty quickly.
Yeah, they play one gov
Um,
sub. They're good usually.
yeah. So it's like, it's not common, but
No,
if it's also, I could see like a version of LEO that like, all of their agendas ended up in the bottom 8 cards and they just like spent the whole time clicking off regoliths or something, right? Like
that deck has.
having that tool,
Yeah, that deck
having
doesn't
that
have a
tool
lot
could
of
be
money
nice.
usually. Yeah. I don't know. I think this might be obvious. I don't really care for this card. I don't think it's going to see much competitive play at all. I think Xanadu would not see play now. I think Xanadu with this weird bypass effect, which Criminal's not struggling to get like more controlled bypass, it's just not a card that any deck seems to want right now.
Man, I want to disagree with you because I put this in so many of my early Baz decks and was having so much fun clowning on people with this card. Because
But
like
how?
just doing the Mag Electric and Fran Sophia Ward were working just like we're rolling Nebulas for me. It was just like
But
they
that's already
Reza
a good
Mephisto
matchup, right?
yeah, it's already a good matchup, so that's why I ended up cutting it, right?
Yeah.
So like this is what I was saying. It's like I want to argue with this card because I do think like credit denial crim is not here at the moment, but I
No.
don't think this is an irrelevant effect for credit denial crim. Like
No. It's good. It's whenever. That's a good text.
yeah, the res cost of each ice is increased by 1. Like that's good
That's fine.
text. Getting it down is pretty tricky because it's like I don't want to play 2 copies of this. Like I really don't.
Yeah, unless you're bypassing consistently, and even then I don't think you do.
Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, this is to me, this is very much a slots are hard card where it's like if I could make this appear in my hand in the right matchups, great, but that's not going to happen. So it's not going to make it into the deck.
I am
Because
so convinced, considering what Xanadu has done, that changing the color of the Xanadu card is not going to make it relevant. But obviously, if there's any faction, it could be criminal. But I want to binder this. Look, I could do it here. This is totally fine with me. I would be shocked if this isn't a tier 1 deck in the next 6 months. Genuinely shocked.
I mean, if that's the criteria, then we can put it in binder.
Now I feel bad.
It's okay. We need to slaughter our darlings every now and again.
You should play that deck more though. What's really frustrating is this was really good into Tattoo Bola. Like that's a really fun interaction. Tattoo Bola for 3.
That's a good
but
one.
then people just stop playing Tattoo Bola because they're like, I don't need to play Tattoo Bola anymore. I have another barrier that seems pretty good.
I don't mind that. That means that like I don't know. I think something like I'm not going to try and argue this out of binder because I think that is where it belongs. But I think the credit totals in the game right now are sharper than they have been in years. And so that's why I have that like faint glimmer of hope that someone's going to figure out a denial crim and like 1 increase on every ice is a big deal if you can figure out that game plan.
I agree. And there's the next card we'll talk about probably helps, but that's the other side that I felt is like installing this for 3 credits when my credits are like, more narrow also has felt kind of bad. And that's always the Xanadu issue is like afford it.
When I got to install this off of open market, the card we're about to throw to, like it was like, oh, that is sick. I'm clicklessly getting, I'm spending 1 click to get this down and I'm getting this awesome effect. So like maybe that speaks to the power of open market. And this open market is a resource job location. When you install this resource load, actually we don't do the reading the whole card. That's a daily cast thing. Right?
No, I've been doing it.
Okay, you've been doing it. My goodness, this is
you just haven't done it in such a long time. You forgot it.
yeah. This is open market is a 2-cost criminal resource. It is subtyped job and location. When you install this resource, load 6 credits onto it. When it is empty, trash it. You can spend hosted credits to install connection and job resources. When your turn begins, it takes 1 credit from this resource, and this is 2 influence. So it isn't fun to splash, but I guess you could if you really wanted to.
Yeah, it's fine. Everybody has connections they want to play usually.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like, oh yeah, they rotated Dirty Laundry and gave it to Criminal, and then they banned Daily Cast and gave it to Criminal. So, worse, but not necessarily worse.
Yeah,
In
it's a
all
4 credit
cases.
econ card. It pays off
Yeah.
slower because you need 6
Yeah.
turns, but because it's a card that pays for other things, you can technically get all the money in 2 turns, in 1 turn even if you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to like install an open market with another open market and then install a class act and then drip
Very
for
good.
2 the following turn feels great. Like,
yeah, class act has been really hard. There's been so many turns in which I have a class act and no econ in my hand I've mulligan into that my turn is sometimes click 3 credits class act just because you don't want to draw up to 9 cards while only having like 1 credit. That doesn't make sense. So this really helps getting through those like awkward spots.
yeah.
This card's
Yeah.
fun.
This has been,
it's
yeah.
good.
This has been like a faction staple, and it's like as soon as better econ gets printed, I think this falls out of a bunch of decks. But like right now,
Yeah, maybe.
this is like a really solid card, and like synergizing with the best draw in your faction maybe means you're going to have a home for even a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, I think the only criminal deck that might not play this is Moosely Hot because Moosely Hot has like slots issues in terms of
That's
like not
fair.
running events.
Yeah.
But I do think like playing this in every criminal, it's totally fine. It's your daily cast, it's your non-interactive econ, it lets you set up quickly. They synergize with themselves, which is quite nice. That's sometimes the problem with daily cast is you don't want to install. It depends when you draw it, I guess. If you do draw this in the late game, it's not perfect unless you can dump it immediately. Then it's kind of fine.
Yeah.
I like this card.
Yeah.
Fine.
I would probably put it on the other side of Rising Tide, but like,
yeah, I'm cool with that.
I think that's fine.
The criminal cards are good.
All right. Yeah, the crim cards were just kind of, and this is also probably tilted a little bit where it's like when we think about faction staple and Anarch, both of us are thinking reg crim, right?
Yeah.
Or reg Anarch, excuse me.
Yeah. Same.
And then when we think about faction staple for criminal, we say, oh, it's all the reg cards, and so it's like, oh, well, these are all reg cards, and so obviously they're all faction staples. And it's like, oh, well, if we, if someone comes along and designs an all-in hardware crim, maybe they won't play some of these cards we're putting in faction staple. But honestly, as I said, I'm like, no, they still will. These are truly faction staples. They're just generically good econ cards that criminal was kind of lacking.
Yeah, it's the baseline. Yeah. These are the cards that make your deck tick. It's going to be hard. Like, I don't know a deck that's not going to be playing 3 clean getaway for a long time. Obviously, that's the top of the faction stable, but card's really good. Criminal, like right now, good stuff crim feels great. There's deep dive crim. There's probably some hardwood crims as well. Some job crim. Like, that's a fun thing you can do. It probably isn't the best thing you can do. And like, it's good that crim feels functional. A lot of the decks feel kind of samey to me, which is like, there's just a lot of different ways to deliver that Reg Hoshiko dream in criminal, it feels like. And I'm interested to see what the future holds, how we can branch that out and have it. But now it does still feel kind of like Reg Hosh, where like 80% of every crim deck is the same. And that, I don't know if that's going to grate on me over time. I do think that's a problem we have because all these cards will show up in most of the decks.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a challenge going forward. But, I think for people that love playing crim, it's great to have that play pattern back and not have to be playing orange cards to do so.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the cycles will make the weird stuff show up. This will just be like, okay, you have a functional playable base. So that's great.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to set things up. So
yeah. All right. We got Shaper. It's a flip ID. I can't flip it. I can just show you the 2 sides. Do you want to say the name on this one?
Oh no. Do we subterputri?
I said I would ask you to say one of these. I don't, pronunciation guides out there. It's Dewi. I do know that. The last name is a bit worse for me. This is the pedagogical Dalang. Dalang is that sort of puppeteer, which is really cool. She, her. Natural identity, 4515, 4MU, no link.
Can you say her subtitle again?
Pedagogical Dalang?
I think you might have said, I heard something a little differently the first time, so.
It's only recorded. There's no way of knowing. Whenever you make a successful run, if your MU is full, you may flip this identity and gain a credit. This is a whenever clause. The other side, Shadow Guide now says, whenever you make a successful run, if you have at least 1 unused MU, you may flip this identity and draw a card. So the idea is you're constantly oscillating between the shadow world and out, in which you're either drawing a card and then gaining a credit and flipping back over. And then you just keep going back and forth, hopefully 4 to 5 times a turn, as much as that is definitely a dream. So, Shaper, what's it up to? Is it running all the time?
This card seems to say yes. The rest of their card pool says no. And so...
No, kind of. Like Knick-Knack wants you to run.
We'll get to talk about Knick-Knack later. We'll talk about Knick-Knack later. I think, it's funny. We ended the criminal with like, oh, we're giving criminal a good baseline that can always come back to.
Yeah.
And Dewi does not feel like a baseline that anyone's going to want to come back to for standard. My ID is
Yeah.
blank until turn 4 or 5, and then I have to
No.
spend 2 clicks.
I'm gonna play my Azimut and my SMC, and I'm game. I'm done. I'm good.
Okay.
Turn
Okay.
1 for this guy. You're not
Okay.
wrong though. There's issues. There's issues.
Yeah. Let me play 3x Azamat, 3x SMC, 3x Muse, and we'll get there. We'll get there. I promise.
But you like genuinely muse for SMC, which is like hyper curse. But those are the sort of play patterns like this recommends you to do, which like kind of weird.
Yeah. Let me do some really suboptimal play patterns so I can get 1 credit for making a run and draw 1 card for making a run.
Okay.
And not even just making the run, making the successful run.
Yes.
So like I have to like I have to stack. If this is like if this was like criminal, and like obviously this trigger condition makes no sense for criminal largely.
But like
right?
a whenever flip for runs would be so fun.
Yeah, it would be sick. But like that's because criminal gets to stack a bunch of successful run effects, and Shaper right now doesn't have stacking value successful run effects really.
No, which is why I think the fun that I've been having with Dawi is trying to exactly fix that issue by playing cards like Leech and Chesva, and then like getting good central runs with Devadatta, which I'm not the greatest card, but like if you can build that run based Shaper. And I do want to say specifically, I will show my cards. I'm actually a bigger Dawi believer than a lot of other folks, and maybe a fair bit about this is that this is the most fun Shaper in the card pool.
Yeah. Oh
my god, is this fun?
Yeah, it is a super fun ID. I think it is entirely non-competitive, but like watching your stream where you first tried this out and went with so much apprehension, and then like
fun.
by the midpoint of that stream, it's like, wait, this is fun. It's like, it's great that this ID can show that aspect of Shaper of like, oh, I get to build a puzzle box and start solving it on the fly, and like that's the cool thing in Shaper. But like as a competitive card, I'm pretty skeptical of this.
So one of the benefits is this is the one Shaper that wants to run a lot. Abstractly say that we're in a full assets meta where you have to deal with 22 asset decks. Would you even play Dawi over just like consistently playing Lat or Maggie and getting down at Azimut? Like I think that's still a hard sell as much as it'll still be fun.
Yeah, it will be fun, but yeah, it's like, oh, just to get the trigger out of, like, you have to find a way to trigger this clicklessly for it to make any sense, because you're just getting a 1-click value basically. Maybe if you're bundling it with a run you were going to make, but if I like spend a click to install a program that's not doing anything and then make a run so that my MU is full, I've just clicked for a credit and made a run. Like that's all I've actually done. I've just like fooled myself into doing it.
You hopefully have other triggers like environmental testing, you're clicklessly Madonning, like you're doing other things to get that, like Shaper. But yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got to put this down low. I like this card a lot.
I like this card too, but I just don't think it leaves the binder.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be quite fun.
You know what? Someone will, I'm sure if I ever get back to streaming, I will end up playing a Dawi deck and having a good time with it. So
yeah. All right, our next Shaper. Magdalene Kano Chemutai, she, the Crypt Architect, cyborg identity. Whenever you discard cards to reach your maximum hand size, you may install a program or piece of hardware from among those cards. You do pay costs. I'm just actually really surprised there's no reminder text on any of the install card clauses in the whole set that has a lot of reminder text. You got to pay those pay those costs. 45.15. I was not expecting a callback to the Katara cycle of Netrunner, which this character is from, which is really cool. As much as we did not see Maggie, that's the story there. This is like the reg boring Shaper, I'm going to say, with big quotes. You can tone flag that the way that you think is appropriate. But in terms of that sort of like lat mini game of setting up your end of turn to get some extra value, I think Maggie is very powerful because installing cards is the power of Shaper, and having the clicks to do that is the cost of Shaper usually. But I do think, again, this is so outside the tier list. I feel like I'd still rather play Lat because I just enjoy playing Lat. Yeah. And this feels so similar to Lat. I'm surprised they're both in standard.
Yeah, I agree. I think to some extent it's like, well, you know, you can't print Dawi, which is a weird card, Dao, which is a weird card, and another weird ID. Like you need to put something that's kind of like, okay, what actually is Shaper? What can I do that's basic and easy to understand how to sequence a turn? And like teaching people how to sequence a turn is a good skill to have in a core set.
For sure.
Magdalene does that. It is generically pretty strong.
Yeah.
And like whether Magdalene or Lat is better,
Yeah, it's up
people
to
will
the
figure
wind.
it out, right?
Yeah.
But it's
But they
like
feel
that's
comparable.
the question. But
Yeah.
it's not an exciting deck building exercise. It's just a put my good shaper cards in, and it's a Magdalene deck, or it's a Lat deck, and I'll flip a coin or understand how the court meta influences which one I'm going to get triggers on more frequently, and move on.
We're seeing less PD, so that seems even better, which is like kind of fun. But yeah, I don't have anything big to say about this. This plays exactly like you think it will by just like kind of looking at it. If you played Netrunner for a while, I haven't seen anything too spicy. There's the core damage, like Synth Clan stuff. That stuff is like fine. I don't even know if that's the best thing you can do, but it's a lot of clicks. This is a 5-click runner, and Lad is a 5-click runner. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
maybe even over.
Yeah, seems good. Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Illumination. 0 cost run event. Run R&D. If successful, you can install up to 3 cards from your grip, and you pay 1 credit less. This will fire Blink in a really fun way. You can install off the Blink. This is 3 influence. This is Joyride out of 10, but Joyride is a much more achievable goal. I think every game where the runner has fired one of these and has installed 3 cards, I have nearly lost the game on the spot, because that is a messed up amount of tempo, especially like in places you don't expect it, like in Hoshiko out of all places. It's like you got companions, you got all these like cheap installables, fermenter, companion, like whatever. If this fires, it's absurdly good.
Yeah. But like in Shaper, like, I mean, I think it's interesting that like this card basically makes the optimal play pattern against Shaper turn 1 is just be Ice R&D.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, now the Shaper player has to commit a card from hand to deal with your ice, a card from hand to play Illumination, and then also have 3 cards that they're going to install to get value out of this.
Yeah.
And
this is a 4-card combo,
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is a 4-card combo on its own, and then every ice they need to get through feasibly adds either cost or another combo piece they need to kind of deal with on your board. So like, I don't think it's that strong in Shaper for those reasons, but like as a criminal or an anarch, like funky splash to just like, yeah, get, 6, get a lot of like, it's not like an amazing value card. Like it's, I guess in theory, generating 6 units of value.
It's a lot of value.
Yeah. Because it doesn't replace the access either.
No,
it does.
It's really good. Yeah, no, you still touch cards.
You're right. You just still touch the cards.
Yeah.
So like it can do a lot. It's just like you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it to land early in Shaper, where it's the most impactful. But outside of Shaper, and it gets you all that tempo, it's really interesting. But then it's 3 influence, so you don't want to play 3 copy. So like it just is like I keep oscillating back and forth, and it's like I think like it's the ceiling on this card's really really high, but like the normal case is like just bad.
Yeah, bad, actively bad card in deck.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to say spree, but that's the sort of thing. It's like the ceiling is so high that the right deck can absolutely blow up with this. We still haven't seen Joyride decks, and mind you, Shaper card draw is in a bit of a different spot than it feels like it was last month. But
I wouldn't be shocked to see like a Joyride come back to some extent, because Shaper draw does feel like it's in worse place. I like maybe we'll learn a little. I forget where we put spree. If we put spree and Slaughter Hard, and then it went on to win Worlds, I think we may have.
Yeah, 100%, and that's fine.
Yeah, maybe we'll learn a little bit and put this low in archetype role player.
I think so. Like, I do think this is like, I'm hopeful for this. This is the sort of card that I actually do believe in, because again, I've seen it fired in early testing where people want to try new cards, and it has felt absurdly good in like Anarch virus packages that need to install a lot of cheap things quickly. Like you do just get good stuff that wants to run. Like it's fine.
It's worth saying it doesn't say install programs. It is install cards, which is a huge benefit for a bunch of decks.
Yeah. No, very, very cool. I like the card. I'm excited to see it. I don't expect to see it in Shaper, which is the weirdest part. Especially because it's anti-synergistic with the console. We'll get to the console, but like the console like really challenges that play pattern, and the console is very good.
Yeah.
All right, we have Ritual. This is the new Diesel. I was like really surprised to figure out how they would possibly reprint Diesel without giving it the nano management treatment. Now it says draw a card for each click you have remaining. So it's anti-VRcation. You want to play it on click 1 to draw 3 cards. If you have any click gainers, enjoy. And what? How many do you draw with Hyperdriver and Eternal? Like, it's fun.
Yeah. Draw 6 in Eternal, I think.
Yeah. This card is way worse than Diesel.
Yeah. Way worse.
Way worse than Diesel. I kind of don't like it. You still play it because it still seems fine.
You play it because
so much worse.
Shaper's draw is now really clunky compared to how it used to be. And it's like, before I was a diehard, like you should play 3 Diesels before you even think about your first Nuka. And now I'm like, I might think about 3 Nukas before my first Ritual.
I kind of, I would say
it's maybe not quite that extreme. I think there's still decks that will want Rituals over Nukas, and like,
how do you think Ritual compares to Stone Chip? Not that we're kind of in a slightly killy meta, but not super kill meta. But like, do you think one's strictly better than the other?
No, I don't think one's strictly better than the other, which is a kind of wild, because Diesel was more or less strictly better than Stone Chip. Like, unless you really needed the kill tech mode, like you should be playing Diesels, and then you played Stone Chip as supplementary draw. And if I was choosing on my supplementary draw options between Ritual and Stone Chip, I'm choosing Stone Chip.
Yeah. Just so this is clear why we're talking about this, comparing this to Diesel. The idea is with Diesel, if you like click 1 draw into your Diesel, you'll probably play your Diesel on click 2. You probably don't play your Diesel on click 2 to draw 2 cards. You usually won't. Yeah, sorry, your Ritual. If you draw this on click 3, do you play Ritual on click 3? No, of course you don't. It draws a card, like just click for a draw. And that has been really awkward. Diesel was also commonly splashed in Anarch and Criminal, and that is because you can draw it halfway through the turn and then still go off to the races, and you have to plan your turn around it. What I have found kind of, at least, let's say interesting charitably, is that you do need to plan your end of turn triggers. Like if you can last click draw when you still have 3 Rituals in your deck, or you can click for a credit, it's a lot of times better to draw just so you can start your next turn with a Ritual in hand, so you can Diesel if you need to. Click 1 hitting your Ritual, I die inside a bit. Like it feels really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
I genuinely don't like this card, but it is a staple. Like that's the thing, is I'm still convinced every Shaper deck is going to play 3 of these, and I hate it. It's like my least favorite Shaper card right now.
It's like you take what you're given, but it's so bad.
It's bad. It's bad. I don't like it.
It's bad. We can't put in slots are hard. It's not an enabler or role player. It's just a bad staple.
It's a bad staple. It's just an ass staple that I gotta play. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not excited for it. It's fine. Whatever. Moving on. We got a Game Dragon. 2-cost unique hardware. It's a mod. That's a fun type. Game Dragon, trademark pro. When you install this and when your turn begins, you can host it on a non-AI icebreaker. And not only does that non-AI icebreaker have that personal touch, it has +1 strength, it also does not reset its strength during a run. So say there's 2 code gates, boost for 1. Hopefully the second one also needed boosting, and you save some credits. This is 2 influence. We've seen some very powerful cards like this in the history of the game. Net Ready Eyes was an incredibly important card. It won Worlds, but that's also for a very specific interaction subset that showed up exactly at that time that I wouldn't argue is here. Weirdly, this feels like it's better outside of Shaper than in Shaper, just because the Shaper Breaker Suite doesn't always require the boosting love that like the fixed strength Anarch breakers do, or some of the breakpoints on things like Carmen do in Criminal. Like, weird.
Yes,
but not the worst.
No, like I'm pretty high on this card. I think I'm higher on this card than its performance is bearing out right now. This is one of those cards that I think people are going to start to realize the math is pretty good on. Yeah, I think it is probably better on like the card that in Shaper that benefits the most from this is Propeller. Yes, I think Game Dragon Propeller is actually a completely nuts 1/2 barrier breaker solution.
It goes further to 3 strength barriers. You beat the 1 strength barriers.
Yeah, just like to me, like beating the 1 strength barriers is such a big deal for a lot of decks at the moment. And spending 1 token on the 3 strength barriers is also like very, very good. And then I for quite a while I was playing this in Baz, and like I might go back to splashing this in Baz over a Nuka, because like
this is why you play Buzzsaw on Baz, right?
Yeah, this is great on Baz. It's like, oh yeah, I get to install this, make my breaker really good, like, and I get that install trigger right away. And so this thing that would like this ice that was going to cost me like 2 to boost on a Carmen and then 2 to break, like, yeah, I pay the 2 to boost installing this Game Dragon, and then to break your 3 cost Sentry or whatever. But
Mhm.
now it's like for the rest of every future turn, I'm saving that 2 credits, or my, you know, my Shibboleth is better, or my Kurapira is better. Like the number of like small breakpoints that +1 strength hits, I think is way larger than people like are initially thinking it is in their brain, or like when they just think about the
Yeah,
flow of
yeah.
the game. And like that's why we keep talking about Leech. Like, oh, if Leech came
Leech is
back,
good.
this card could be really good. And this is Leech, but you don't have to make a successful run, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I'm pretty high on this card, even though I don't think it's seeing a ton of play right now, and that's why I'm like revising down from my initial levels on it.
Yeah, it is, again, also worth saying that the Turbine just got banned, and this is definitely not Turbine for a couple reasons. One of the biggest things is that there's no functional way to tutor this in Shaper, and that was actually a very big strength of Turbine. You could rush it down if it made sense, when and if it made sense. This, you just have to naturally draw, which Shaper card draw, again, is kind of weird. Uh, I don't mind this. I don't think I've played it in certain matchups where it's felt really quite good. I do think I've been playing
Yeah.
Buzzsaw Baz, and I've been enjoying that. And you do hit
Yeah,
breakpoints
yeah, but
relatively good.
Buzzsaw is a very good friend to Game Dragon as well. Because yeah, then you get, we talked about earlier, all those 4 strength code gates, and
Yeah.
yeah, this getting Buzzsaw this 4 strength feels like a really big deal.
Top of role player, is that too high?
Yeah, I think top of role player is good.
Yeah, seems good. There's always going to be a meta where you can consider this. It's very easy to play. Okay, next up we have a console. It doesn't give you MU. It costs 2. It's called Madani. It gives an ability that for a click you can host any number of programs from your grip face up on this hardware. They are not installed, they're just hanging out there. And then once per turn you can pay nothing to install a hosted program, paying its install cost. Oh, this one does say it. Okay, that's good. Limit 1 console per player and has 3 influence. This is a weird console. When this came out, a lot of people didn't love it. It's the only Shaper console that ever doesn't give you MU as much as DZMZs do, and you're going to want them. The idea that this hosts a bunch of cards on it is a really, really big deal. That you can spend a click to basically offload 4 to 5 credits worth of installs. You can fire this on the corpse turn. You can fire this on your turn. Then your DZMZs become Rozekis that fire twice per cycle, like once on the corpse turn, once on the runner's turn. This has been incredibly performant. I do think there's other consoles you can play, but this card is really frighteningly good.
Yeah, this is the only card that I'm thinking on the entire Anarch side that maybe ends up in the ban me please category.
Yep. This is the only card going into this I thought we would have that conversation about.
Yeah, it's tricky for me because like it's a very particular deck that wants to use it, and like it's unclear to me how much experimentation, like how essential, if that same deck could cut the DZMZ slots, play a lily pad, and like put some other econ in those slots, right? And if it could come out in the same, if it could like reach the same end state with higher consistency, right?
That's the thing, is like right now the Shaper Econ package is almost entirely programs. Like you're playing environmental testing, or you're playing Fermenter, or you're playing Coalescence, right? Like it's just those 3 things from what we've seen. Shaper lost way too many events in the last ban and rotation to play Onicom in an obvious way, it seems. So they're getting most of their events off of installing cards. And that still makes Lilypad good, but it also makes Madani, like you can environmental testing way more click efficiently. Like, I don't know. Do you know what my biggest problem with this card is? That it is making board states that are honestly getting imparseable for me. Like when your opponent has 2 simulchips and 8 programs attached to this and they're making a run, like the heck do you want me to do? It's like, it shouldn't be more difficult than then saying they have an SMC, but it is more difficult because I have to look at 8 different cards and figure it out. And that is actually having a toll on me that I'm not enjoying. Like it's kind of a mess. Their board state is really ugly to parse.
Yeah, this is, you know, this is a card that just feels like a bit of a miss from like a design and maybe even a balance perspective, which is unfortunate. Like I think there's a neat fantasy in this card. It's like, you know, we keep coming back to Personal Workshop and Polly's Cafe. And like it's funny the small difference that Madani is like the host any number of things for a single click feels like the thing that just breaks it. And like it's probably the reason it goes in ban me please, even though it's meant to have a bunch of other downsides. I
just haven't felt the downsides. Like I haven't felt that I can compress the runner to a spot where It's ugly that they can only install one on their turn.
Yeah. And I think it's also like the entire Shaper Econ package is tied up in programs right now. So there's no cost to having this be your centerpiece of your game plan. Right.
Yeah.
So
DZ's so good with this too. Like, oh my God, getting 2 credits per turn cycle is absurd.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I
you
don't
have to
know.
be getting value out of it, but yeah.
Is
I
Arsanin
feel
dead?
comfortable putting this in ban me, please. But yeah.
What do you think about Arsanin as an Arsanin player now that this exists? Like, I think she lost a bit in rotation for sure, but like, does this totally just eat Arasana's the promise of Arasana?
I don't see why you would play. I mean, like, this is a frustration I've had with this card throughout is like, why ever play Arasana again, right?
Yeah.
This is a better trigger than Arasana because you don't have to hold cards in hand. You get to hold them in a safer zone. And like, you get twice as many triggers. Like, it just has a lot. You can still play, if there are good Trojans, you can just include them and throw them in the Madani rather than holding them in your hand and being tied and like paying a cost. Like, yeah, this card is just.
No, yeah, you just put a Muse on this. It's like,
yeah,
do whatever you want.
It's, you know, Arsenal lost a bunch in rotation, but like, there's just never a reason to look at it right now, I think, in the current landscape of the meta.
Yeah, bummer. I do agree. Like, I don't know. I think time will tell. I do think there are still lily pad builds that are going to be fun, but I think I've been frustrated with this card, and it's very, very powerful. You're getting 6-click runners, no problem, with no meaningful downsides.
Yeah.
All right. Another program, Azimat. It's cost 1, but it takes up 2 MU, which is like a nice little surprise. Has 2 recurring credits. That's a lot of money, and you can use this to trash anything. Mind you, we lost Parisha in rotation. Parisha was 0 for 1 MU, but only trashed assets, not upgrades, and not technically you can trash operations every once in a while. This card's really good. It's 1 influence. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is like, yeah, do you need asset tech? Seemed like it, you know, everyone was like, oh yeah, assets are going to be running the whole meta game. And like, if you feel like that's the case, they are good. Azimat, I think, is actually a really nice solution. Like, yeah, the 2 MU is a cost, but especially in the asset matchups, maybe don't even, like, it's not actually a particularly relevant one. Like, you can often just be like, oh, maybe I don't even need one of my breakers this game, or I can do my 3 breakers and then Azimat instead of my Chesvi, and like, I'll probably get more value out of the Azimat than the Chesvi. So
I feel like every runner deck I've built for the last little while is spending 2 to 4, 5 influence on 1 Azimat, 1 Fencer Fueno, and some Baya bands.
Yeah, and
I feel very happy about that. Yeah, if you can do Hannah, you can do Hannah. But like, that has just been like the package you put in for low influence that is not awful in a lot of matchups and is very good into assets, and you're feeling happy about what you've done.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think, Azimat has not felt terrible. And like, hey, it is Dayweave support as well. You can slap this down, and for not much cost, you can fill up 2 MU, which is great for that ID.
Bargain. This thing is really quite good. I honestly...
You think it's better than Transfer of Wealth and Magdalene?
Yes. Yeah, if you didn't have this card, Shaper can't do anything into assets. This is one of the best assets cards in the game.
Yeah, it's one of the only asset cards in the game. Yeah, it is. So
the best one too. Yeah. I do think it's just like, it's a card you'll see everywhere. Every Shaper deck should be playing one at a minimum. Not every deck will be playing a Transfer of Wealth. Chromatophores, we did get a Trojan. 1 cost 1 MU, install on a piece of ice, and then it gets that paintbrush type effect. We paint the ice, it gets all the 3 main types of ice: Barrier, Code Gates, and Sentry. Notably, the ice doesn't have to be res. That was a problem other versions of this, Egret that just rotated out, had. Yeah, I've actually like seen this in reg Shaper decks, and I was kind of surprised. It felt nice. It might not be necessary, but it felt okay.
Yeah, I think every time I've seen it, I've been like, you could just play a better card here. And it's been, but like, to me, this isn't like, in my mind, I'm just like, this is an archetype enabler. I think it's a pretty bad archetype enabler. Like, there's going to be people that play this, but I think it's like, I think the problem with Chromatophores is it's a 1-to-1 ice solution that's actually secretly a 2-to-1 ice solution, where you need a second card, and that has historically been pretty bad. And the fact that the Shaper card draw has gotten worse makes it even more pronounced that you're like, oh, I have to draw even more cards and get more cards on the table to make this do anything. I think is pretty rough. And no one has yet been able to convince me that Umbrella exists.
I've heard people trying, though. I haven't seen the decks, but people are definitely trying.
Yes.
So,
But yeah.
to me, this is like the card that hangs out on Madani and you pull it out in like a pinch when you want to get through something cheaply with your propeller, with your revolver. Is that better than just playing a Palangi? I don't honestly know. Palangi is fine. People are not playing Mavirus. I do think you are going to see this in weird builds, right? Like this with Begamut and Essa might be a genuine way you can interact with ice. That's fine. I think you're going to need a weird angle, and then this is a way that you capitalize on the weird angle. And I think Begamut is one of the few weird angles that's worth pursuing like this, besides Umbrella, which I believe even lessen.
Yeah. No, completely agree. And actually, as I'm saying that, I'm like, oh wait, this is a role player and it's a low role player because like I need to be doing something already powerful with a singular breaker to make this interesting. Yeah.
It's fine. It arguably could be a slots issue. I just have no doubt that there will be decks that do play this.
Yeah, to me, it's like either an archetype role player or a binder card. I actually don't think it's a slots or hard card, right? It's not a card I get to include for incidental value or something. Like it is just it's either does something or it doesn't.
I agree. Okay, we move it. Or we good?
I would move it to binder, I think.
Ooh. Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm interested to see the decks that will play it because they'll be kind of cool decks. That's for sure.
Yeah. I will enjoy playing against decks, and I think they will do interesting and powerful things. Like I think that's actually true of most of the cards in binder here.
Spree Chromatophores with Begamut, just rip it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, our second last program, Devadatta Drones, 1 cost 1 MU. When you install this, place 2 power counters on it. Whenever you breach R&D, you may remove a hosted power counter to access an additional card. So Nyasha existed in the last meta. It cost more. It had another power counter. It saw very niche play, as much as it must have been 2, maybe even 3 influence. This is better. It's worse. The last counter on the Nyasha is probably the least useful counter. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you like this card, but I do think that this being 1 influence is secretly fascinating for a bunch of decks that I don't enjoy playing, right? Like for 1 influence as a splash for your last influence in a runner deck, I think this makes some amount of sense. I think if you're playing Pretty Mary and playing Mercury and all that sort of like send it all the time decks, this is genuinely good for 1 influence. I just don't play those decks.
Yeah, I don't play those decks either. I don't love playing against those decks. I think if you know that they're coming, they're very beatable. But if you don't know they're coming, they actually just roll you like no one's business. And it's kind of a non-game. It's actually kind of a non-game in either direction in my experience. And like maybe there will someday be a shaper deck that's like, yeah, I'm just playing a couple of Devadatta drones. I've got other program synergies. Yeah, it's Daywee. It's maybe that you get to your environmental testing builds that are like because there's a world where this is maybe a little bit better than like. It's funny, in our last tier list, or maybe the one before that, when Cataloger came out, we were like, "Oh, this card is sick. This thing's amazing.
Let's go!" Yeah,
and then it's like, I could see playing this over a Cataloger because this doesn't cost like Cataloger was like, "Oh, I need to have 3 clicks to go and fire this." This is I install it and I go and I start getting value immediately.
Yeah, and you talked about like the problem is like run-based shaper with Daywee. This is like a good run. Like seeing 2 cards off of R&D is already a great start. But again, there's other structural issues there. I think this is better than the amount of play it's going to see now. I think this is the sort of card that at some point can have a renaissance because it is a very cheap pressure card you can put for 1 influence in weird places. And a lot of decks are like, it's actually genuinely in this meta. There's not that many ways to see additional cards. And it's strange that we rotated like Legwork that saw next to no play, Maker's Eye that saw no play. And now I feel stranded. Like it's strange. It's like twinning or bust. It feels like
I would say Legwork didn't see no play.
But it saw no play for the last year. It used to see a lot of play, but like compilation just became. Legwork.
I got knocked out of some high level events by being Legwork by Chris. But
yeah, okay, that'll happen. But you know what I mean. It's not like Legwork in 2015 or whatever.
Yeah. It's Legwork at one point was in every single runner deck, and it has not had that status for quite a while. So
yeah. I don't mind this card, and I have barely played it. I kind of like it.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. Does that make it top of slots or hard, or in the archetype role player?
Role player for sure.
Okay.
Because I want to say that I will say that we want to believe. I say that we believe in this card.
Okay. So that's the believe line, or is Illumination the believe line?
I think, but to our believe line, which is worth knowing where it is, Oh, that's actually hard to tell. I
Yeah,
believe more in Rent Riders than Illumination, but I
I
have
think I do too.
suspension of belief about Illumination.
Okay, we'll come back and talk. We can talk about those
Yeah,
two
yeah,
cards later.
we'll sort this out. We have our last program. This is Principia. 4 cost, hopefully not, 1 install, 1 MU Icebreaker Fractor. This costs 1 less for each other Icebreaker you have installed, which is quite nice. Comes in at 2 strength, which is okay. It boosts 2 for 2, which is not great in a 3 strength ice barrier land. And 1 to break a barrier subroutine. This is only 1 influence. And in theory, this actually does work well the more apples you play, because they do have a synergy package with other knickknack and stuff like that. What do you think?
I find it very funny that Bad Gauss gets printed in the year 2025. Um, it's
Okay.
this is a this is a econ card, a
Yeah.
bad econ card masquerading as an icebreaker.
I agree that this is more of an econ card than an icebreaker.
Yeah, it's entirely dependent on Knickknack, the next card we're
Yep.
going to talk about, along with some other
100%.
synergies like environmental testing, TCMC. In theory, gets you value out of it if you can find some ways to trigger it, right? Um, this is a pretty lackluster icebreaker, but again, Shapers didn't have any fractors in system gateway, so filling out that cycle, it's nice that they have 3 different breakers that each care about other icebreakers in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
If you install this for 2 or 1, like, it's not the end of the world. But if I'm installing this for 2, I should be playing Gauss, because Gauss is by and large, unless we end up in a 4 strength barrier meta, maybe this could have an argument over Gauss. Though
But
barriers are often one of the first cards icebreakers you need to get down anyway.
yeah,
So like,
so
that's very rough for this card.
I don't think we can convince either of us that you want to use this to break ice, particularly in the early game, which we're really good in Shaper at doing. But how good is this as an econ card? That's something you install hopefully for 1 credit and sell for 4 in a card draw. Obviously, that is comparable numbers already to installing Coalescence, which functionally gives you that much money, but split up in a more organic way, that you don't rely on everything. You honestly don't want to spec work this, I don't think. But what do you think about this as an econ card? Because I'm actually fascinated with that idea.
I think this is bad as an econ card, because it's an econ card once I have 2 to 3 other minimum 3 other cards down, right? I need to have
Sure.
2 icebreakers and a cell engine, right? So I need 3 other cards for this to be a sure gamble plus 1 credit.
And a
like
card draw.
No, that's what 2 icebreakers makes it strength 2. So I go plus 2 credits and a card draw. So it's actually still worse than a sure gamble there.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, okay, so now to actually get a sure gamble of value, I need to have a 4-card combo. 4-card combo plus the Principiant. So a 5-card combo. This is, to me, one of the problems with Shaper right now, is like, you either have a 5 to 7 card combo that like beats sure gamble by 2 credits and the game is slow enough that works, or you have a 7-card combo that makes you 1 credit more than a sure gamble, and you get to that 3 turns after the game ends and no one cares. And this feels like peak. This will only ever work when the game is already decided econ piece.
It's like, even in the late game, if you simulchip this back to sell it to Knickknack, you're better off simulchipping a Coalescence, because that's 6 credits in a card draw. This is 4 in a card draw. Yeah, that's not good.
This is just to make Knickknack make sense in system core, it feels like.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, okay. I've been talked down. I didn't think it was great. I just thought like you could play Coalescence and this in a Knickknack, what's it called? Environmental testing engine, but I feel like that's probably not even worth a slot. I mean, unless you play Rising Tide, so you play 3 of these. I'm kidding. Where do we put this?
Yeah. Is this worse than Shred and Detente? I think it might be.
No, it actually is like it's not a good econ card, but it is an econ card. I'd argue Detente is better for your opponent than you, and Shred just doesn't do anything.
I don't think Detente's better for your opponent than you, but
I do. Could have been a Hermes.
That's fair.
I would say here is fine.
Okay, there's fine. We don't need to argue that much about the worst 3 cards. Well, okay, there might be one worse card there too, but we'll see.
Okay, we got another card coming up. I'm gonna explain the card and then you can talk about it all you want. This is Knick-Knack O'Brien, 2-cost unique resource connection. The first time each turn a run begins, you may trash one of your other cards. If you do, you get credits equal to its install cost and you draw a card. It's connection, it's 3 influence. There are some weird decks that could consider splashing it. I don't know how good those are. I don't think they are great. So yo, is this pawn shop?
No, not even close. Pawn Shop just said, did you want to install a card that you no longer need on your board? If so, gain 3 credits.
Trash
this
a card,
says, yeah, trash a card, gain 3 credits. This says, install a card before you make a run, and then if you no longer need that card and you want to make a run, you can get the value of that install cost plus a card. And that is so, like, the number of conditions there is way higher than the number of conditions on Aesop's Pawn Shop.
Yeah.
The fact that Aesop's Pawn Shop enabled you to go credit positive on 0, 1, and 2 cost cards. This will never go credit positive. We can talk about cost reduction effects and how they interact with this. But it's just like, to me, this card is going to bait people and being like, oh, wow, I got so much value. I clicked to install my Coalescence, then I ran Archives to trash my Coalescence and draw a card. And from my perspective, you should either be spec working that Coalescence or clicking to draw. Like, you're not actually gaining that much value by making that extra run relative to the amount of value you got by clicking to draw and then next turn selling that Coalescence for 3. Like, there's just a loss of value in that exchange.
I agree, but say that in a world where Pawn Shop doesn't exist, should they not still run Archives? Like, what else are they doing?
Play spec work instead.
Yeah, but you only have 3 spec works. That's actually like a really big thing with this card, is it doesn't feel like there's that many targets.
Your targets are Muse and Coalescence. End of list.
Maybe you throw in a Zmat once you feel like you've done enough work, but you only get 1 credit. Like, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. Like, I used to be able to like sell my propeller and then simul-chip that propeller. Sell the propeller for plus 3 credits, simul-chip it back into play, and like I'd feel great because I now have the credits to break subroutines. Whereas now, if I do that same play, I drew a card, but I don't have the credits to actually go and break the subroutines on that piece of ice because I only got the 1 back. Like, that feels
it's also
really bad.
I haven't run into this yet, and Muse kind of fixes it, but sometimes the worst time when you're making a self-modifying code-fueled Shaper play is to draw a card at the start of the run. Because if you draw the thing you wanted SMC, you are hyper-cooked. Like, it's just really bad, really fast. You have Muse, so there's ways to fix it, but like, that's bad.
And yeah, it's like, Shaper has not functioned recently. Like, the only Shaper deck that has consistently wanted to like run every turn was like our Sonic Trojan decks, right? Trojan engine decks. And those decks were very rarely playing Aesops, like almost never. Maybe like Barbara Wu and I could, I'm sure, have that debate for a couple hours. But like, they largely weren't. They would usually play Specworks instead. And the only other run support Shapers we've seen have been Dewi and like Illumination as run support, and nothing else supporting run. So it just feels like, I don't know, like Aesop's Shaper was like sort of a thing in the last meta. It was a reasonable consideration, but it was fine. It was like, once they banned Trick Shot, it was like the thing you could do in Shaper, and it was, I don't think we'll ever, that meta was not like super sharply defined that we'll know exactly how powerful that deck was or wasn't. We know some good players played it, but it's hard for me to know that it was like, the top tier choice. And now it's like, we're going to take that deck and like crank its power level down even more, make its econ more conditional and stuff. And I just kind of go, miss me with that. But
this is the problem, is that I would argue that people very clearly look at this to see this is the trashier programs forward archetype enabler. And I don't know if you can argue out of that. I think the only thing you can say is play 3 spec work and don't play this. But even like the White Blade Madani deck, I feel like could have used one of these knickknacks, because at some point you play your 3 spec works and you still have things you want to trash.
I don't think you should, because if you draw this early, it's actually bad in that deck
What do
because
you think?
or like if you draw this before you draw your fuel, you're in a bad spot, and if you draw this at the end of your deck, you're also in a bad spot. Like there's like a couple turn window where this is valuable. The other thing is that Madani deck doesn't want to make runs.
Yeah, that is a problem. I was making way too many runs when I was playing it. I was playing like aggro shaper, which like that's don't do that.
And it's like, yeah, this is maybe supporting aggro shaper, but I do think actually the draw synergy and like when you gain the credits is just awkward for shaper. Like, you know, it's I often want to be able to install a card, and then now that I've installed that card, make a run, like pivot off of that install to make the run. But
not trash.
And with Aesop's, I got the credits, and then I got to go and set up and then go, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, oh, I have to be ready to go. I can't need the credits except to break ice, right? Or afterwards. And so it's just like, this card just feels very awkward and clunky to me. And like, I could just overwrite my Coalescence and get a card slot back that does more for me in a lot of cases. Like, this is fighting for a card slot to me, not something I get to build a deck around. And that's a difference between this and Aesop's.
Yeah, I do. I like Aesop's a lot more. And Spec Work has felt really good right now, which is like an ugly slot to compete with. Where would you put it then?
I mean, I just the way I just described it, it's probably a slots are hard card, right?
Okay.
Because we just said, like, you know,
the thing is, like, okay, out of say that we put it here, say that we do, out of all the slots of hard cards, this is the card that I have the most, that I think is gonna have the most representation tomorrow at the Summer Showdown. And not to like disprove this, because I do think it's still consistent with what we were saying.
I think that's true, but I think by the time we get to Worlds, I don't think that's going to be the case.
Neat. Okay, cool. That's all the Shaper cards. What do you think about Shaper right now? Are you just mourning the loss of Arsana?
I'm mourning the loss of Shaper, I think. Like, I think Shaper is like kind of in a pretty fucked up place where they're like abusing Madani in a way that like is just like, if this deck is good, it is banned, like just like out of the gate, right? And it's like, you're not going to ban a small piece, you're just gonna say, Madani, you're gone. Like, there's no other card that enables that thing. And then like, if you take that away, you're just playing reg lat, but all of your cards got worse than they were in the previous rotation. You didn't get any upgrades really.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Criminal got a bunch of upgrades, and Anarch has just been like on par with you and didn't really get any upgrades either. And like, I do think, you know, I'm pretty sad about Ari getting completely gutted with the loss of Cubon and Ika. And like, I think that deck is very dead, and then also we've had the Trick Shot and Creative Commission bans. So like, Shaper has just had a whole bunch like scooped out of it and not been given back very much in the way of power.
The thing that I've been kind of struggling with, and I'm not the biggest Shaper player unless the Shaper deck is a bit weird, is that all of the econ engines I've seen in all the Shaper decks are not interaction based. They're all just kind of like playing setup and trying to like rush, like basically play control and get you to a point where you're locked out. And it feels like every Shaper deck basically leans on two economy cards. It's either a fermenter deck or it's either environmental testing
deck.
And those, like, I said that about a Criminal. All the Criminal decks are like 80% the same cards. And for what it's worth, this is the smallest standard format we've been in a really long time. Yeah. But it's way more fun to play against that than it is against Madani environmental testing. And Fermenter. Totally
agree.
Like, you want me just to purge? That's my interaction. I'm going to purge? No, I'm
I think it's like, if you don't want to play environmental testing Shaper, your only econ option that provides any sort of semblance of that amount of credits is Fermenter. Like, and that's to me, that's like weird. It's a pretty unstable and like unhealthy way for the faction to exist.
I miss Onicum Shaper. I miss event-based Shaper. Like, it was fun.
It's tricky because like, Crim probably doesn't have that many identities either right now, but I do sort of feel like, oh, you can be a little more event focused, you can be a little bit more econ denial focused, you can like, you have to be more like committal deep dive. Like, it feels like there's a couple different branches, whereas I feel like the Shaper deck, it's like there's going to be a Shaper deck and it's going to do like, it's either going to be environmental testing or it's going to be fermenter, but that's just the econ swap. It's the same game plan. It's going to be the same rest of the shell. It's just one of these is going to be more performant, and that's what you're going to play if you want to play Shaper. But like, I also think it's going to be hard for those decks to be better than an Anarch criminal deck. So yeah, this set has some like, I think there are very neat shaper cards in here. I think there are good like learning tool shaper cards in here. But as a set for like competitive play, it's pretty narrow and a little disappointing.
And historically, mind you, Shaper was the best deck for the last while. So like this also just kind of falls into the natural oscillation that
That's like
maybe you'd expect.
yeah, maybe. I feel like people always overstate the length of shaper dominance of formats,
Yes, that might be true.
especially when it's like, oh, if you look, there have been 2 worlds since 2018 that wasn't won by Anarch, I think.
Yeah, but they're both won by
Um,
Shaper, no?
yeah, and in both of those, an Anarch player came. Actually, no, this was the one where Anarch didn't come second. In 20, I think Anarch was still the majority of the cut in 2022.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, it's been a while.
I don't
That's
remember
probably
exactly,
correct.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
We got one last card.
we do.
It's neutral. It's side hustle. It's a job resource. 2 credits to install this. When you install this resource and whenever your run begins, you put $1 on this. And when there are 6 or more hosted credits on it, you can take all of them and you trash this to draw a card. So neutral economy on the runner side, it is interaction based. We did talk about how some of the mostly shapers are struggling to find reasons to interact, like why are they running. This is abstractly a payoff for running, but it is kind of slow. Like 5 runs between install this and paying off is a bit of a steep cost. I don't think this is daily casts. Haven't been super happy in many decks that I'm playing this unless it's a really run based deck, and even then
Yeah.
sometimes I struggle to install it.
Yeah. I've been like, well, I could either make a run or I could install the side hustle in a lot of those run heavy decks. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna make the run and hope that my penny shaver credit's good enough, rather than like
Exactly.
install a side hustle so I have a second penny shaver that's gonna trigger in 5 more runs. Like
It's
that's
felt
been very tough.
weird. It's very comparable to Penny Shaver. The card draw is nice. You do pay off explosively, and you get it when the run starts, which is both awkward and okay sometimes. I think 4 stars is the kindest review that you're going to see on this card.
I was very amused when in spoiler season when this came out,
Yeah.
how high people were on this. And like, again, that's just a like, oh, I had experience with this and felt like, yeah, 5 runs set is a lot more turns than it feels like when you just say 5. Like,
Yeah, like that is actually true. 5 runs doesn't feel manageable, but how many turns do you run twice a turn? Like it's not that many. Like this actually takes a lot of turns to fire. I do think if you're in like a very assets heavy meta where the majority that you're playing against is assets, this is not a terrible slot into the deck.
I think the tricky thing with it into an asset meta is I'm going to throw away a click and 2 credits so that in 2 to 3, that hopefully in 3 turns I will get back 4 credits in the card.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's
a tough, it's like if I'm already at a 10 credit mark and then I draw the side hustle and I can throw it down, great. But if I'm struggling to keep up on the board state, the side hustle's never leaving my hand. And that's tough. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm not expecting to see a lot of this.
No, this is like a scrounge level slots are hard card, I feel like.
Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see Scrounge Gourmand being a deck. So,
did I get the one testing name out of you per video? Oh, sick. I see how you edit around that. What do you think about this tier list? Do you think we have to make any changes? Let's run through it. Ban me, please. This is the only card I would even consider at all. I don't like a lot of how it plays out. Faction staple, clean getaway, easy. Azimuth, very good in shaper decks. I do think it's between Maggie and Lat. There's a chance that Maggie just comes out of the wash not to be the better version, and they're so similar that I only think one of them can win. Maybe they're comparable enough that you choose your favorite.
Yeah, like you could make it. Yeah, I think the thing that differentiates this between Topon to me is like Magdalene is very clearly like basically at Lat's power level, and it's going to be like a small optimization between one or the other. Whereas it's like, and like I could see it swapping depending on the setup of the court meta, right? Yep. Whereas like you're never going to look at Topon as long as Hosh is a legal option.
Yep, I agree with that. So. We have a block of criminal cards. Yeah, mostly how it's probably a staple. I'm Not sure if it's the best criminal. I think we'll see this weekend whether it's the best red crim. Rising Tide is in a weird spot because it's just Corroder, and I'm okay with the back half here. I'm out of principle.
That
Gonna put
back half
Lilo above
of
Rich.
3 cards are like all cards we think are kind of bad, but you're just gonna see them anyways because there's not great options.
Why is there one archetype enabler? What happened with this? Like, is that's just elevation, right? It's just like a general set.
Because we're not trying. I mean, like we could arguably move Muslahat into archetype enabler, but
Playing runs is not an archetype, I don't think.
Yeah. Playing run events is not really an archetype, especially in criminal. If it was Shaper, it could be an archetype.
Oh yeah,
but like
Anarch, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it's this is light on engine pieces and more just kind of like more generic pieces, which makes sense for a core product.
Cool. I think the only thing here is I'd probably swap these, but I think you definitely won't, so I'm okay with that. And Rent Riders, Illumination is probably strange here. It's arguably slots are hard.
I think we can move it down to slots are hard. Yeah,
that's fine. Okay. We're very bad at putting breakers on our tier list. Very classically awful at it. I think we had some weird inclusions, but I think Sun Control is like whatever. I think it's replaceable without a huge impact on the deck.
Bling is secretly an archetype enabler, but we're putting it here because that's its actual power level for this standard.
We've said that now a couple of times. It's on record. I don't mind this.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I think the binder I'm happy with too.
Sick. It's elevation. It's an interesting runner side. I do think you're feeling the economy crunch. I think the lack of options is felt a bit more. Obviously, we're so new into the meta that anything we're going to say and that we have said might look really silly really quickly. But again, we try and revisit this in like 30 or 60 days to see how we're standing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll probably try and do it like midway through the Mega City season or something. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks. This has been a ton of fun. Thanks everyone for tuning in. You should check out, if you have somehow not already seen the first tier list video, the first half, it's up on Andre's channel. It was a pretty good one, and we actually went through it much more efficiently than I thought we would. And you can find the link to that in the description, and then probably also that will lead you to the whole suite of these. We've been doing these for quite a while now, actually.
It's been a moment. They've been really fun. I always look forward to these. It's always a great time.
They've been a lot of fun. If you disagree, there will be a link to making your own tier maker, and you can always let me know in the comments how we got things wrong.
The comments for the last tier list haven't been that abrasive. People have been like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, wait, should we do a weirder tier list? Like,
should we start rage baiting people? But no, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit a like and subscribe, and go and like and subscribe to Andre's channel as well. There's a lot. This is a great time to be joining Netrunner, and hopefully this encourages you to try and dip your toes in it and maybe prove us wrong and show the world that Daywe can be a competitive shaper.
Standard is really approachable right now. It's like 500 cards. It's the smallest card pool. It's actually kind of sick.
Yeah, hopefully my next video, which should hopefully will come out within 2 weeks of this video, is a getting into standard in post elevation or in the elevation meta. So keep an eye out for that one.
Super cool. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Thanks so much for coming on, Andre, and thanks everyone for watching.